Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse episode 262. I am Peter, and unfortunately Matt is on a weekend vacation this week. So we're at the we're at the rehabilitation center of one Connor who's soldiering on despite his illness.
I have to return to work tomorrow.
Do you even feel
really not
like 100% yet?
I'd say I feel about 40%. I did some washing up of some like dishes earlier. Nothing like too strenuous, just a full lot to leave on the drying rack. Took me, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes to do that. I was so exhausted afterwards I had to go and lay down for 2 hours. So I'm not looking forward to tomorrow.
That's how I always feel when I do dishes, but okay. Well, that was too much work for today. I'm going to go and rest.
I have as we start now, I have 34 minutes of legal isolation left until I am allowed freedom.
Given how you still feel, that feels a bit off.
Apparently, I'm not contagious anymore.
Okay, all right.
That's the idea. It's not that I don't necessarily feel bad, because I could still feel like shit. And they were like, oh yeah, you might still have these symptoms for potentially weeks, but you're not going to be contagious, we don't think, so you're good.
Well, you're here. It's time for the show. It's a big show. It's a big episode. There was a lot of books this week. I'll put it this way. So I actually ended up not reading the book that I was supposed to, right? I didn't read Future State Gotham. Turns out Connor didn't either, so there'll be no Future State Gotham talk this week. I'm not necessarily dropping it for good. I'm hoping that I will remember it exists and go back and read the issue before the next one comes out. But what's so funny is that out of the 9 books I had to read, including a Patreon book, only 2 of them, one of them being Future State Gotham, might I add, were only 20 pages. The standard length of a comic book. Everything else was an annual, naturally 30 or plus pages, or had backups that I was reading, and then there's Batman Urban Legends, which is 60, 70 pages.
What was the other one?
Other what? Batman Detective is the other standard length.
Oh, is that regular length? Okay.
Yeah, that's just normal size. So, but yeah, this is a DC Comics podcast, if that wasn't clear. We talk about DC Comics every week. We get together and we talk about what we read, but we also have Solicits this week because they decided to drop them just in time for this busy week. So thank you for that, DC.
To be honest, we kind of knew they were coming with the amount of goddamn announcements all week.
Yeah, that's what makes it worse. I mean, Solicits, when there's nothing new, still take like 30 to 40 minutes to talk about, when there's actually a lot of new things in there to like discuss and go, oh, what's this? What's this thing? What does it mean? Where are we going with this?
There's a lot, not to spoil, but I counted. I believe, not counting the specials and one-shots and stuff, there are, I believe, 11 new titles.
I'm going to tally those off as we go and see if that's inaccurate.
It could be 10. I could have miscounted.
Yeah,
but
we'll see if that's accurate, and we'll see.
And I want to preface that that's including some of the ones we talked about over the last couple of weeks as well. Like, it's just in total for October.
Okay. Good thing to preface that with.
Yeah, not new to this show, just new for October.
Right. Okay. So we got Solicits, and then of course the books we're going to talk about this week. I kind of name dropped like half of them already in my spiel about how much I had to read this week. But we got Infinite Frontier issue 2. We have Detective Comics 1039. We have Action Comics Annual 2021. Wonder Woman 775. The Flash Annual 2021. Why is there 2 annuals on a random week too? This is weird. Batman the Detective issue 4. Batman Urban Legends issue 5. Rorschach issue 10. And then a couple of Patreon books. Connor's catching up for last month. He did have COVID, so well, technically still does, depending on your. I mean, it depends.
I believe I can test positive for it still for like 3 months. So
oh really?
Take that as you may.
And then of course I'm doing Joker issue 4, which is just a month behind. And next week I'll be doing Joker issue 5 because David is making me read an extra Joker issue.
I'm pretty sure was actually new this week.
It was. Ideally, I'd have done this last week, but I still had 2 books from last month to do, so there was no way I was going to get ahead of it to do the new one this week. So next month onwards, when I'm doing the book for Patreon, it'll be the new issue and the week it comes out, which is cool. That's a nice...
Yeah, and like I say, this was a big week. I know, I think Flash Annual was always scheduled for this week, but Action Comics was actually delayed to this week. It was meant to be a few weeks ago. Okay. Yeah.
Because we just had a week 5, which is what's weird about it. Flash Annual at the very least is the conclusion to the arc, so it doesn't feel intrusive in a way that an annual sometimes can, where it feels like a tacked on thing.
I think that's why it's here. I think it's more just staggered between issues.
Yeah. So I can appreciate the pacing for the story in and of itself, but for the pacing of the books I'm reading, I would have preferred it on the week 5.
Yeah.
But hey, it is what it is. I got through all those pages, and we're going to talk about these books. We're going to have Solicits. But of course, before we get to any of that, the best segment of the show has to start things off, which is the ComiXology Top 10 at the time of recording. We're recording this on Friday this week, just for full disclosure, so you know when we're looking at this, because obviously these change day to day, I believe. Although Carl's going to be happy with number 1.
I am.
It's not a DC book. It's not a Marvel book.
Is it Die?
It is Die. Die issue 18 is number 1 right now. So there you go. Have
it must
that.
Be selling pretty well. Which obviously it's only got a couple of issues left, so it's not like it has an impact on its future, but good for future Gillen projects, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you could just do a sequel and call it and do 20 issues again, but this time it's 2 D10s that's been rolled rather than 1 D20.
It's terrible.
Well, hey, it's 20 issues because it's a 20-sided dice. Honestly, it's this is just as good as the reason why it's 20 issues in the first place.
See, ideally though, the sequel would be like Die 2.0, right? And you just kind of ignore the point a little bit, so it looks like 20.
Unless it wants to go all the way up to a 20th series. In which case, you don't want to ruin the 20 pun before you get to 20.
I admit that is a concern.
So we have that. We have number 2 is Excalibur issue 22, and number 3 is Way of X issue 4. So a couple of X books. Do you know what? I want to like the X-Men. I want to love the X because I like the characters more than a lot of Marvel characters. But goddamn, every time I look at that corner of Marvel, it always looks so convoluted and messy and
intimidating.
The whole thing. Number 4, we finally get to DC though. What was the best-selling as of right now DC book on ComiXology?
Is it a Batman-related book?
It is. See, you're learning.
Is it Detective Comics?
It is Detective Comics 1039, and I'm happy to because the book's very good, and I'm glad it's selling well. Then we have another DC book. Any guesses what the 5th ranking book right now is from DC?
Is it another Batman book?
It isn't.
Is it Infinite Frontier?
It is Infinite Frontier. Issue 2 is number 5. Then Thor issue 15 is number 6, and then Star Wars Doctor
Aphra.
It's cut off, so I was waiting for the little pop-up box.
I'm assuming it's Aphra, otherwise I'm way out of the loop on Star Wars books. I didn't realise.
That's issue 12 at number 7, and then X-Corp issue 3 is number 8. Number 9 is Rorschach, issue 10, so that's still doing well. Number 10 is Action Comics Annual 2021, so that's doing decently as well. There's more DC right after that, though. 11's Batman the Detective. 12's the Flash Annual, so I'm glad to see these things still hovering at decent places. And then, looking further ahead, Wonder Woman's a couple of spots lower. Batman Urban Legends is down at number 18. So
it doesn't surprise me, given it's an expensive book.
Yeah, and then Justice League Last Ride's number 20. So there's a lot of DC in that top 20. There's a healthy amount of it. And Joker issue 5's in there. I didn't even notice because the cover, for some reason, they've got the variant, so I didn't see the logo at the top.
Weird.
I just noticed Punchline there. I was like, it's Joker. So yeah, decent amount of DC in the top 20 at the time of recording. So that's nice. That's nice. No complaints there. But I won't belabor this too much because we do have a lot to talk about this week. So we'll move on to. Well, before we start, I think we should mention the sad news from this week. Before we go into the actual sort of comic book news itself, Robson Roca, an artist who we have talked about many times on this show, was a big part of Green Lantern Rebirth.
Kelly Sue's Aquaman run. Let
me rephrase that. He was a big part of the Rebirth Green Lantern series, not Green Lantern Rebirth by Jeff Johns from 2005 or 4, whatever that was. It's confusing because Green Lantern and Flash have both had previous rebirths, so it gets a lot of confusion with those. But unfortunately, it's fairly suddenly to us, I think, as the public, he passed away this past week. really sad. It was one of those things where just all of a sudden, Connor put in the group chat, "Did you hear about Robson Roca?" I was like, "Wait, no, what? What's going on?" And it was like in my head there was two possibilities: either he's just suddenly passed away, or he just suddenly was discovered to be a really bad person and now is cancelled. And I was not looking forward to the response, whatever it was, and it was sadly that passed away.
Yeah. From what I heard, he'd been ill for a couple of weeks. He pretty bad. Like he'd been in hospital. They were looking for a blood donor. He needed some transfusions. It seemed like he was on the mend after that, and then some complications happened, and he got significantly worse very quickly, by the sounds of it.
That's a shame. That's a shame because this. I mean, I don't know what age he was, but he wasn't.
It's pretty young.
Yeah, he wasn't an old guy by any means. He was maybe middle aged, if that.
Relatively young, I think 30s.
30s, yeah, okay. Which is scary as someone who's in his early 30s. It's hard not to be a little scared when you hear this, but no, it was a shame to hear. It was always a very dependable artist on his DC books.
I just checked. He was 41, so I was. My information was. I was thinking of 30s a couple of years ago. When we were reading, probably Green Lanterns.
It's still very young though.
It is. You're definitely definitely on the younger side.
I mean, I'm only 9 years away from that age. I don't.
Yeah, it's.
I'd like to go a bit longer than that, please.
Yeah, it's definitely not anything like old by any definition. As much as I might joke that Pete is old on a regular basis, not in the grand scheme of things. Yes. Just in comparison to me.
Yes, especially I'm actually the second youngest of everyone who appears on Mail Fuzz TV or movies content. But
yeah, but you're here and Matt's not.
Yes. Okay. Well, there we go. So yeah, it's a shame. Obviously, very sad to hear. So, give some thoughts for Robson Roca this week. Maybe go back and read some Green Lanterns or Aquaman or anything else he might have worked on in his career. So. All right, Solicits. We have October Solicits, and there's a lot of weird new little things coming out of this. There was a lot of announcements leading up to Solicits, but as we like to do, we'd rather just go through the Solicits. If there's anything straggling behind that wasn't in the Solicits that was also announced this week, we'll get to that afterwards. But quite frankly, I was saying this just before we started, that the text in the articles when they announce things before Solicits tends to be very convoluted, and the information is often quite buried, which is really annoying when you're trying to get access it by eye quickly when you're on a podcast talking about it. The Solicits presents it in a nice simple format, which is consistent, and it's much easier to read. So we're just going to go through this in order. Obviously, a couple of things were announced the previous week. We'll obviously reiterate those as we're going through these. But let's get into it. So Batman the Imposter, issue 1. Was this new this week? I actually don't know.
This is new this week.
Okay.
We've not spoken about this yet.
Was this last week? I can't remember.
No, this was Monday, I believe.
Right. So yeah, this is a story by Mattson Tomlin. This is art by Andrea Sorrentino, which obviously is the maybe the big sell here for a lot of people. This is a Black Label Batman book. It is three issues, 48 pages. So one of these prestige, oversized 3-issue books. Very pretty cover. And it's going to have a Behermo variant as well, so I imagine both covers are going to be very pretty.
I mean, I'm looking at the Behermo variant now, and it's very nice, yeah.
Oh, is there? So that reminds me of, remember, I've not even read this story, but the Batman Fugitive Murderer covers. I see it. Yeah, I could, just because of the shadow on the wall behind him. Although he's clearly facing against someone else dressed as Batman, by the looks of it, which, I mean, makes sense. Fine. It's called The Imposter, so I assume there's going to be an imposter Batman. But the question is he wearing hockey pads?
Well, given the premise of the story, quite possibly.
So, and hockey season ended months ago, which, by the way...
It ended like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's a reference to a movie. It's a line.
I know, but it's still too soon.
It was a lead-in for a plug to the new show, you tit, called The Sacred Hockey Mask, and you're ruining it by sitting there bickering about the timeline of when actual hockey season ended, when I don't care when actual hockey season ended.
Matt would care.
Well, Matt's not here. So, shut it. Um, oh yeah, it's a shame England lost, and I'll throw that out here just casually.
Unsurprising because
Do you know what?
I mean, I even said on the show last week, like, we're probably not going to win. But
this is the thing: if you want England to lose something, right, they couldn't have gotten closer. Like, they couldn't have gotten closer and lost at the last possible second than penalties.
No. And
which makes it funny.
Do you know what really hurt? There was a point where we were down on penalties already. Jorginho stepped up to take a penalty. He has never missed a penalty in his entire career. He scores this and Italy win. Like, that's it,
Mm-hmm.
And you're sitting there, he's walking to be like, right, this is it all over. And Pickford saves it. And it's a huge moment. Literally the first penalty that has ever been saved by this, against this guy. And then, I think it was about 47 seconds later where we lost anyway. But this is England and penalties. It was never going to end any other way.
That's such a shame. But the only, I mean, obviously I hate football. I can't stand talking about it. The only thing I liked, meme-wise, on the day of the finals to whatever tournament this was, there was, the Steve Buscemi meme, the "How do you do, fellow kids?" Someone photoshopped a Mario hat and a mustache, and it was "How do you do, fellow Italians?" And it was like, "This is Scotland and Ireland today." Which I saw that one.
I did like during the game, a new meme was born, and I even posted a Comics from the Multiverse edition of that meme onto Twitter. It was one of those moments where, as you're watching the game, the thing happens, and you see the meme born before your eyes, and immediately that's a meme. You can just see the template. And,
of course, yes.
It's a great moment.
Hi, but
it sucked.
Yes, but just made Connor more miserable, which just made me happy. So that is that. So that's one new book, right? Just noting this down.
Just on that, the premise is to do with what if Batman was in the real world? It's one of those sorts of books.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and the guy who's writing it, Mattson Tomlin, this is a director and screenwriter. It's kind of Project Power and Little Fish here. Interestingly, and again, this is not official from Warner because they're not saying this, but on his IMDb page and a couple of other places, it has him listed as a co-writer for the new Batman movie coming up.
Oh, interesting.
So it could be interesting, yeah.
Interesting. I'll read this for the new stuff. It is kind of worth just reading the solicit text anyway. Bruce Wayne's mission as the Batman has only been underway for a year or so, but he can tell that he's making a difference. Unfortunately, he's made some powerful enemies. All the traditional power brokers of Gotham resent the disruption the Batman has brought to town, and it seems that one of them has a plan to neutralize him. That's a second Batman haunting Gotham's rooftops and alleys, and its one has no qualms about murdering criminals live and on tape. But the entire might of the Gotham City Police Department and Gotham's rich and powerful coming down on his head, Batman must find the imposter and somehow clear his name. But how can you prove your innocence from behind a mask? So it's interesting because it doesn't actually mention here about the real world aspect of it.
No, that was all in just the those horrifically awkward articles that you were talking about before. It was in that where they talked about that element of it.
So the idea is that this Batman's just in the real world and there's no other superheroes and there's an imposter of that real Batman.
I believe so.
Okay. Just to keep track, because I was wondering, is it like a Batman from the real world? Like, is the imposter in the DC Batman world? Like,
I think the impression is it's kind of Kick-Ass-esque, in the sense of let's treat this as if it's the real world.
All right, okay, go. All right, then we have Batman 114 and 115, 2 issues again, which again I'm totally okay with because they slowed down the other books so that this could go double shipping, and because it's doing like an event style thing, I'm still okay with that. I think that's a good pacing for a big story like this. I would
say, yeah, the most interesting things about these are the backups. 114 not so much. It's just the end of the Clown Hunter backup that will be happening after the Ghostmaker one.
Sure.
But 115 starts a new backup. Written by Cloonan and Conrad, who are obviously doing Wonder Woman and a couple other things right now, and it's a Batgirl's backup.
I'm on board.
Yeah, I thought you would be.
I'll give the Clown Hunter backup a try as well. Obviously, I noped out of the Ghost uh, Maker one, but
Maker. Yeah.
you know, like I can dip back into the other ones as they seem interesting or different. Because let's be honest, because it's still Tynan that's writing the Ghost Maker one. I'm
I
just
think he's co-writing it, isn't he?
but I'm just kind of I'm just like I'm out. The story wasn't doing much for me, and it doesn't feel like I'm going to miss much by not having read it. So, but you know, I'll definitely read it back.
Yeah, I bet you will.
No problem with that. Now a new book next. I'll note down tally mark number 2. This is Arkham City: The Order of the World, issue 1, and this is in continuity. This is spinning out of the A-Day attacks. This is all coming from that. This is 1 of 6. So this is a 6-issue book. Story by Dan Waters and art by Danny. Do you know who Danny is?
Yeah, Danny did Lolo Woods.
Oh, okay, all right. That could be interesting for a like Gotham villain story. That could be interesting. So here's the person. The Joker's attack in Arkham left the long-standing Gotham establishment in ruin. Most of the patients killed or missing, and only a handful of surviving staff. A few nurses, a gravely injured security guard, and 1 doctor. In the chaos of the assault, it is believed that several of the asylum's patients escaped and scurried off into the dark nooks and crannies of Gotham City. Now these Arkhamites walk among us, and it's up to the asylum's one remaining doctor, Jocasta Joy, if I'm pronouncing that right, to round up her former patients. Meet these Arkhamites: a woman with no face, a piggy in search of perfection. That has to be Professor Pig, right?
Yeah.
A man who feels nothing but burns everything, Firefly. A woman who must devour life to save herself. I'm sure that's someone, but I can't think of who.
Yeah, woman with no face is probably the dollmaker's
yeah.
person. Right?
I immediately thought of Lady Clayface or Mudface or whatever.
Yeah, or it could be Duella Dent, right? She's going around with the Joker mask.
A man unfit for the waking world who looks instead for Wonderland. Mad Hatter, I would presume. A body with more than one soul. I don't know who that is. More than one soul.
Not off the top of my head, no.
A being unbound from time who lives in the present and the past. Oh. So no. I don't know who that is, but it's interesting. A boy who seeks the comfort of vermin. Oh, that's a boy. I was going to say maybe Ratcatcher or something like that.
I was as well, but...
The boy. And then a twisted man who sees them all for who they are. That sounds...
And witness the avenging angel who stalks them.
Oh, avenging. I missed the last part. That last one before the angel... I was getting slight Psychopirate vibes from it, maybe, but no, I don't think so. I don't think because he's too busy on the Infinite Frontier stuff. I don't expect it to be him, but
yeah.
So this is an interesting premise. I kind of like this. Obviously, yeah, there's a lot of Gotham books, there's a lot of Bat books, but I think this one's interesting because it's a very different focus. It's a doctor trying to track down escapees from Arkham. I actually think that sounds kind of cool.
Yeah, me too. And I've enjoyed everything I've tried from Dan Waters so far.
Yeah, both of these covers are fantastic, but the main one I kind of want to point out here, I think, is very intentionally harkening back to Grant Morrison's Arkham Asylum: A Serious House and a Serious Art. It's a very similar title style. The art style.
It is. I saw a tweet from the graphic designer who did the trade dress for it earlier, who was saying, once they knew the title was, Arkham City, they were asked if they wanted to make it a homage to Arkham Asylum.
I dig it. And the cover as well. I mean, obviously you have the text style, the title's written like that book was, but the actual image itself, you've got this sort of moody looking city, but you've got like regular people walking on, the small sort of bridge you get in like a park over a little stream, and you've got just the villains underneath, like glowing red.
It's a gorgeous cover.
Very pretty, and the variant actually is really cool too. It's just obviously its own thing.
It's a Matina cover. It looks great.
Yeah,
the variant, but the main one is very distinctive.
So. That's very neat. That's very, very, very neat. So I'm looking forward to that. I have to say, I'm down for both new books so far, but this one is the one that's speaking to me just a touch more.
Me too. The first one has Sorrentino art, which is very appealing. So, which alone probably guarantees me trying it. But this one is the more well-rounded concept.
Yeah, there we go. Batman Secret Files Peacekeeper 1. Not counting this as new, because obviously this Secret Files thing's been running we haven't actually tried the two so far, and part of that is interest, part of that's just because they've come out in busy weeks. There's definitely some that I will read just because of their characters that they're focusing on, but
this one in particular is co-written by Tynan.
Yes.
And it feels like it's probably pretty heavily tied into everything, given it's Peacekeeper 1. So more likely to try this one, I think.
Co-written with Ed Brisson, who I associate that's someone I associate with Marvel, right? I feel like Ed Brisson's done a lot of Marvel.
I think he did like a bunch of X books around the time, maybe around just after Taylor was finishing.
Joshua Hickson on the art in this one, who I don't know actually. So
not me either.
Interesting. Catwoman 36. Not much to say. It's just Catwoman's continuing. Pardon me.
Yeah, another different artist, but I have complete faith right now.
Yeah, and it's still Fear State labeled at the top, so still tying into that, which is neat. Seems to have Harley as well as Ivy in it, so it seems like we're doing like a sort of Gotham City Sirens-esque kind of tale inside Catwoman, which is cool, especially through the lens that the Catwoman book has and the tone that it has. I think it's kind of neat. So, then we got Nightwing 85. We got Batgirl in her new outfit, with Nightwing jumping through the sky. Which is cool.
Yep.
So that's very neat. I'm just going to check out the variant while I'm here. That's not bad. Jamal Campbell variant. Neat. We got Detective Comics 1044. Dan Mora back on the art for this one. I don't know if he was back in the previous issue, but he's on this one at least. Obviously, we've got Bogdanovich on the current issues, which is not a complaint because Bogdanovich is also very good.
Yeah, it's basically there's a break for Mora every so often to do an arc of Once and Future. And then he's back doing this, which, I mean, fine by me. I'm winning on both books there.
Sure. And obviously it was double shipping. I mean, it's double shipping right now, actually, to be more precise. But just in terms of solicits, it was double shipping. So I wonder, like, does it go back to double shipping once Fear State's wrapped up, or are they going to keep rotating books that maybe just need like a quicker arc here or there? I'm all for the flexibility, though. I've said it before, but I like the... some books can double ship for a couple months when they've got a big story to get through.
Marvel's like 18 issues a year.
Yeah.
It actually works really nicely.
It is. It's not... Like, the OCD in me doesn't like the lack of consistency, but I do appreciate... Especially... Because Marvel, I think, pace them out, at least when they're to schedule, like, once every 3 weeks, so it feels consistent. Whereas DC are doing this thing where it just switches to a double schedule when they're on 2, and then back to 1 again. But hey, that's what it is. It's a nitpick. It's not a real complaint. So that's cool because that book's been great. I Am Batman issue 2. Obviously looking forward to that. The John Ridley Nick's Batman stuff. Obviously I did not read Nick's Batman issue 4 last week because I just ran out of time to read books. But I probably won't talk about it on the show properly, but I will probably make a point of reading it before issue 1 of this. Or issue 0. I guess is more precise because there's an issue 0 of it.
Is there a 0?
Yeah.
Timeline next month then.
Is it next month? Yeah, Fear State's already going in September. It's next month because it's all the prelude to Fear State that it's included in.
Yeah, well, I'm just assuming if 2 is in October.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple of those one shots that are leading into Fear State to go along.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Batman itself obviously is the actual thing. And then we got Batman Urban Legends issue 8. Got a Batwoman on the cover.
Interesting sounding stories in there. 2 Fear State tie-ins.
Do you know, I kind of like using this for Fear State tie-ins. Rather than doing a bunch of one-shots, Fear State Batwoman, Fear State Outsiders. No, just put it in your Batman anthology book and have them be Fear State tie-ins. I think that's a really neat way of doing it. So we got a Batwoman Fear State story. We got an Outsiders Fear State story. And we have Azrael getting a story, and then a Professor Pig story. It doesn't sound like any of them are multiple parts, though. It sounds like they're all one-and-dones.
I could buy the Fear State ones being more than one.
Possibly, yeah. But it doesn't specify that they're parts 1 of whatever at any point. No. So, which is a bit of a shame because I kind of like the idea of having like mini-series nestled in there, and it's part of the appeal for me. Like, the 2 stories in the middle of Urban Legends tend to be the weaker part for the book. So we'll see how it goes once it's because one of them is ending this week actually. The Grifter story ended. So we'll be talking about that later. So that's cool. Harley Quinn issue 8 still going. Not much to add, I don't think.
No, it's a Fear State tie-in.
I was looking forward to it though. I'm sure. uh, then we got another new book, so I'll tally this one down. This is number 3. This is Task Force Z or Task Force Z, depending on how you
Depending
want
on
to
how
pronounce it.
terrible you are.
So this is basically dead villains are being reanimated into zombies. It is a zombified version of obviously Task Force X. Matthew Rosenberg, speaking of that Grifter story in Urban Legends, Rosenberg's writing this. Eddie Barrows is on art, so I think he fits a zombie story. I can see Eddie Barrows doing
I can as well, yeah.
that.
Barrows are solid.
So yeah, in life they've terrorized, and this is an ongoing. By this is not a mini.
This is not just an ongoing. This is the new ongoing home of the Red Hood.
Oh, really?
This is essentially the new Red Hood book.
Okay. Well, I'll read the solicit text here. In life, they've terrorized people of Gotham. Now they are Gotham's last hope. Task Force X saw villains working with their way to freedom. Task Force Z will see dead villains working for a new chance at life. On A-Day, so this is again spin out of A-Day. So this much like the Arkham City book, we've got more A-Day stuff.
This is very much in continuity.
I love all this. Like A-Day was such a big deal. All these things can spin out of it. I kind of like that. And not right away either. Like A-Day, we've known about A-Day for months at this point. I love that there's still things. Oh, by the way, there's some psychological after effects of A-Day. This doctor's chasing down people, and then we've got this. So on A-Day, an attack at Arkham Asylum left hundreds of Gotham's most cunning and deranged criminals dead. Now a mysterious benefactor has activated the government's task force clause to bring the clause task force clause. It's in the rules to bring them back as the ultimate army of the night. To lead the team of the undead, the only person who knows exactly what it feels like to be brutally murdered and brought back to life can handle the job. Enter Red Hood. But when Jason Todd unravels the mystery surrounding Task Force Z's creation, will he try to destroy it or embrace it? Bane, Man-Bat, the Arkham Knight, Sundowner, who? Mr. Bloom, Red Hood, they're all Task Force Z, and death was just the beginning. Why did Man-Bat die? Is that just like Dark Thing?
I don't think so.
Interesting. Okay.
When did Bane die?
Oh, Bane died in A-Day.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They found his body. That's why all the Santa Prisca Bane cult are chasing Joker and Joker. They're all pissed
I do remember that now.
Yeah. I don't know who Sundowner is, but Mr. Bloom coming back's interesting. I'm glad he's dead though.
Sure.
I was not a big fan of that part of Snyder's Batman, so I'm glad that he's dead.
Mr. Bloom and Sundowner are the they're the ones that you throw into the Suicide Squad to just like, right, okay, they're the dead meat.
Yeah. Well, in this case, they're already dead though, so this may not follow typical Suicide Squad rules.
And kill them as many times as you want.
That's true. They'll just keep coming back unless you completely like sever all the limbs and head. And I mean,
we don't know what the rules are.
Maybe they can Frankenstein it. Even if they do get cut up, maybe they can just stitch them back together again. I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's cool. We got a Batman Fortnite one shot because that's done such a.
The most interesting thing about this for me is that they're treating this with respect and they put Scott Snyder on it.
And Christos Gage.
This is not just a throwaway thing.
Yeah, even Christos Gage though he's co-writing with, and also Donald Mustard. I assume they're all doing their own stories rather than co-writing, admittedly. But anyway, Christos Gage, he's done a lot of fairly interesting stuff here or there. He's
did some of the interesting Spider-Man books, right?
Yeah, didn't he also do like one of the Angel books when Dark Horse?
He might well have done. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, I want to say that was he did a lot of that. And on top of that, obviously, yeah, Snyder doing a story here is obviously them giving it some star power, basically. So cool.
Yeah, and they got a Capullo cover, which they haven't showed us yet, but a Capullo cover. They're putting talent onto this book.
Well, it's clearly selling very well, and that's fine. It can go sell well. I'm going to ignore it forever.
I mean, that's fine. I'm not going to read it either. But
yes. Next,
I wasn't counting this towards my tally either because it's a one shot.
Yes. I wasn't going to count this towards the tally either. Batman: The Long Halloween Special, which we knew about. I noticed when David cut up last week's episode and put it up on the channel as individual videos. I noticed he referred to this in the news in the headline as the longer Halloween, which I thought was vaguely amusing. So I'll give David some.
That's quite good.
Minor cred.
Why didn't you come up with anything like that?
Because I referenced something else. I referenced I think the Swamp Thing in my title of the full episode.
I'm gonna verify what you actually called it.
I went for like a meaningful name based on.
Okay, the power of an idea.
Yeah.
All right, no, I'll allow it.
Yeah, I wasn't going for a pun with that. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I
Makes
go
a
for,
change.
Yeah, sometimes I go for a pun, but sometimes I want to like reference like an important beat that was prominent that week. So yeah, I was about this last week. This is the Loeb Tim sale coming back for a 48-page special, which obviously is exciting. Even though Loeb's output is not being exactly great for a long time, hopefully it's a nice fun throwback to that.
It's a one shot with Tim Sale art. I'm
Yes.
gonna read it for that.
Yes. And then we have, I think this is completely new this week,
It is,
which is a Catwoman Lonely City issue 1. It is a mini series.
It's a 4-issue Prestige Plus, which means it's the different size trim.
Yeah, I was going to say because it's not on the cover, but I assume it's Black Label. It looks.
It is, yeah.
Given the 4 issues, given the size of the issues of 48 pages, it just looks like a Black Label book.
I think that's because it's shown the variant first. Maybe. Oh no, it's not.
Yeah, I mean the second cover does have the DC label on it. They've just not put the dress on it yet.
Yeah.
But I actually think I like the variant more, to be honest. But there's this like Catwoman jumping through the night city, but there's a
That's really nice, isn't it?
there's a silhouette behind her, but in the silhouette it's all these past versions of Catwoman. It's a neat cover. So this is Cliff Chang, who's both doing the writing and the art, which is very interesting. This is the solicit text here. Wait, is this Jock cover here to see? No, it isn't. Okay. Well, I'm not going to look at. There's a Jock variant that's 1 in 25. I'll be looking for that.
Yeah, neither of those are Jock covers.
Yeah. 10 years ago, the massacre known as Fool's Night claimed the lives of Batman, the Joker, Nightwing, and Commissioner Gordon. Obviously, this is Black Label, it's out of continuity. Just keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And sent Selina Kyle, the Catwoman, to prison. A decade later, Gotham has grown up. It's put away costume heroism and villainy and childish things. The new Gotham is cleaner, safer, and a lot less free, under the watchful eye of Mayor Harvey Dent and the Bat Cops. The Bat Cops. It's into this new city that Selina Kyle returns a changed woman, with her mind on the last big score. The secret's hidden inside the Batcave. She doesn't need the money. She just needs to know who is Orpheus. I thought I was going to say who is Batman, but who is Orpheus?
It's more interesting, I think.
Yeah,
we don't know the answer.
Yeah, we don't know the answer. Did she know who Batman was in this continuity? We'll find out, I guess. But
I mean, I'm assuming this is not Orpheus, the son of Dream from Sandman.
I doubt it.
And also from Greek mythology. That would be weird.
I mean, it's possible, but I doubt it.
Yeah,
I doubt it. I'll tell you, Mark, because the next one is also
very exciting because Cliff Chang. I don't actually know much about his writing, but his art is utterly gorgeous.
Oh, I already tallied that one. I was tallying for this next one, which is DC versus Vampires, which is a 12-issue book. I guess the deceased did well that they thought maybe we can do another.
Oh, I can tell you why this exists in a minute when we talk after we talk about what the series is.
Well, but they wanted another. Well, you'll know why. But my instinct was, they did zombies. Now we'll do vampires. So DC vs Vampires issue 1. James Tynion IV and Matthew Rosenberg co-writing this, which honestly is a pretty good team to get me into it.
This is Tynion did a 12-issue breakdown, and then Rosenberg's worked all the scripts out from that.
I have no problems with that.
And Otto Schmidt on art as well.
Yeah, Otto Schmidt. Happy to see him back in a DC book, and that cover is very pretty. It's Batman with vampire teeth, blood.
That's a Matina cover, right?
That's Matina, yeah. There's also a Wonder Woman Harley, which I don't like as much, I have to admit, but yeah, that's fine. That's not Schmidt though, is it? That has to be a variant.
The regular Schmidt one's there. If you keep going, it's got Green Arrow on it as well.
There's a Green Lantern cover, which is all right. The variant. There's the Schmidt one. Of course, Green Arrow's on the Schmidt cover.
Yeah, of course
they put Green Arrow on the Schmidt cover. But that's cool. I do like the logo. It's DC's like in the vampire teeth. It's very pulpy. I like the pulpiness of it.
That's good.
I can get on board with that. So the Justice League has long protected Earth from all manner of foreign and alien invaders over the years, always keeping a vigilant eye on the skies for the next threat. But both the next threat was already walking the Earth, hiding in plain sight, watching, waiting for their moment to strike. In the tradition of Deceased, yep, just admit it, comes a terrifying new series from the twisted minds of James Tynion IV. When they put Nice House in the Lake as his first credit here to reference, and Matthew Rosenberg, that's a couple of things for him, and Otto Schmidt. So yeah, this is neat. Honestly, I would be mildly interested on the premise. Like, okay, sounds fun and pulpy, but you put Tynion, Rosenberg, and Schmidt on that list of names, and I'm on board.
Yeah. So the fun backstory to this book was told in Tynan's newsletter. Tynan got very candid about 5G. This exists because when he was coming towards the end of his Batman run and 5G was meant to be going ahead, he did not want to be a part of 5G.
And this, just to clarify here, because for people listening, his Batman run was going to end originally.
Issue 100, yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that he continued was actually one of the first things. It was like, oh no, because we talked about this, the fact that he kept going because he was happy that 5G was done and they weren't doing it and so on, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so basically he spoke really candidly about what 5G was, and basically said that DC wanted to create the stories for everything in-house. They wanted their own little committee that came up with the stories for all the books and gave them to the writers, and then the writers would go away and write the scripts for the stories that they had been asked for. And apparently there was like no flexibility. This is why we heard Williamson not long ago was saying he didn't want to be part of it, and Tynan was basically saying he didn't want to be part of it at all either. But he was still under contract with an exclusive contract for DC, and he owed them 2 ongoing books at a time. And he had Nice House on the Lake lined up, but without Batman, he was like, well, I owe him another book. I have to do something. And he was like, well, Deceased is selling quite well. Would you be happy enough for me to do another Deceased style book as my second book? And they went, yeah, sure, don't see why not. So he wrote a full 12-issue breakdown, and then 5G collapsed, and he stayed on Batman and had no time to write it. Which is basically why they went, can we get someone else in to write it? And, who would you like? And he was like, well, if we can get someone like Matt Rosenberg, I think he'd have a great voice, but I don't think we could get him. But, we'll try him anyway.
And fast forward a few months, and he's like on like 3 DC books.
Yeah, exactly. And it wouldn't surprise me if maybe we're seeing this late, but we've known that this DC Vampires book in some form was coming for a while. We learned this at that retailer event a while back. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was on that list of 10, and so it was a really weird list of 10 as well. It wasn't like big notable ongoings. It was like weird projects.
Yeah, so I wonder if maybe when they reached out for him for this book, that was the first step, and then it's gone to other books after that.
But we've seen the results of those first. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but this exists to fill a contractual obligation.
Just on the point, though, about the whole committee of the in-house DC doing the stories and then just giving them to writers to script. That is horrendous. That is the factory produced content, and I was just complaining on Twitter just yesterday about Marvel like prevising their visual effects action sequences before directors are even hired, and how therefore the director's not having an influence on those scenes, at least not as much as they should be.
It's weird where they start those previses like years before the films even started shooting.
It has this sort of prefab kind of feel to it, and it's partly why I think a lot of those movies are starting to feel really, really, really bland. Because those directors' voices are just barely making it in, and it's usually just in scenes with those two characters talking to each other. That's why the character connections might usually end up being the best part of those things. They're not always, but that's why sometimes it is, because those are the parts that the directors have more control over. But anyway, cool. That sounds fun. Interesting how it came to be, but very, very neat. And it's funny that Tynion and Williamson, if these are the two people who were speaking out against wanting to be a part of this crazy new system that Didio or whoever was trying to put in place, I think it's fascinating that those two are now like two of the writers spearheading the entire universe of DC Comics now.
It's very notable that Tynion obviously is doing the Bat books, but he's doing a lot of other stuff and is guaranteed bank of sales. When you look like Nice House on the Lake and everything else he's doing independently. Just a sales juggernaut right now, and then Williamson is driving the current event.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning, because he's the one on Batman, he's the one, basically dictating what the direction of Gotham as a whole is. So even though I'm sure all the other people working on Bat books, the books are all doing quite well, so they all feel that the team seem quite happy with what they're. But traditionally, whoever the writer on Batman, the titled Batman book is, they're the one who kind of comes first in terms of saying this is what's going on in Gotham, and then everyone else works in that status quo. And That's just the way, I mean, someone has to be making those calls. That's just the way it has to work. That's not like a ego thing or anything
Yeah,
like that.
and it's
But-
always going to be either Batman or Detective. You work around those
Yeah.
books as a rule.
And I actually think Detective's the even better book, which is a testament because Batman's actually freaking great right now. It's just that Tamaki's doing such a great job of working within that.
I think I prefer Batman, but I mean,
yeah, I mean it's.
I'm happy with both. They're both in really great places.
But the point is he is spearheading the most successful and popular corner of DC. Williamson's spearheading the overall crisis event style thing that's taking the entire direction of the thing. So it's interesting that those two who spoke up and were vocal and didn't want to be part of that ended up getting these prominent jobs because someone came to their senses at DC and said, let's not do this and move on. So
Thank God, right?
yeah.
Can you imagine what a weird... Like, we were excited for the idea of 5G because we wanted something fresh.
That was before we didn't know all this though. We didn't know about all these details.
No, we didn't know any about these things. We kind of knew vague ideas of, well, let's kind of, play with the timeline, have like, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman be physically older. And we were into that. But if we'd lost all these creators and it had been that committee overseeing everything, we'd be miserable right now.
Oh, absolutely. This podcast would have become a painful chore. So also someone just commented that I hope Connor recovers from
Getting there. Thank you, whoever you were.
It was someone asked why there wasn't a new Star Trek review or when is the next Star Trek review coming, and I just said, "Oh, Connor's got COVID. Bear with us."
Yeah, it slowed things down a bit.
So cool. All right, back to Solicits then.
Yes.
Human Target. We talked about this already, but this is a new book, so I'll tally it.
Yep.
For October. This is the Tom King book, 1 of 12. Hey, you know what? If you put Tom King's name in a book and say it's 12 issues, I'm basically in.
I'm not necessarily going to love it because I haven't liked all of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably going to try, especially if you stick like Smallwood art and you tell me that I can't believe it's not the Justice League are in it. I'm there.
I mean, I have though. This is the funny thing. All of his 12 books, all of his Black Label books, Mr. Miracle, Strange Adventures, Rorschach, I freaking love. Talk more on that later. And so, I mean, Supergirl, yeah, the first issue wasn't like a knockout the park, but I thought it had a lot. I felt it had the equal amount of potential.
I admit I haven't actually gotten around to trying that yet because I'm just not caught up.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. It wasn't instantly, oh my god, this is the new best thing ever. Like some of these other books from him.
So that's because it's only an 8-issue book.
That's true. Maybe it has to be 12. It has to be 12 to have that magic
number.
I don't know. But I'm looking forward to more of it. So yeah. I like this idea that DC are always going to have him on 2 prestige books. That because Strange Adventures and Rorschach are both ending around the same time. We just started Supergirl, so we'll have Supergirl and Human Target at the same time for a while.
Are you forgetting Batcat?
Oh, and Batcat as well. Yes, Batcat. So maybe 3. Maybe they'll have 3 at a time. I'm cool with that too.
I do think he's better suited to these books than he is the big ongoing series.
Absolutely. And keep taking these characters who are relatively B tier, or in this case, honestly, C or D tier.
It's a win for me as well, in the sense that if there's one that I don't feel like I want to read, that I'm not enjoying as much, I just skip it. It's not like I'm missing the main Bat book or something else major.
And no disrespect to Human Target, but let's face it, he's not a B tier character. He's at least C tier.
If we're being generous.
Yes. More like D or E.
Despite having had a TV show.
And that's not a judgment on the character. That's not a judgment of the quality of the stories he's had in the past. But just in terms of cred, just in terms of his stature, he's not B tier. He's like C tier at best.
Yeah.
But that's cool. I'm more excited. I am more than excited for Tom King to make me give a shit about this guy.
I assume he has more free reign with those sorts of characters.
Oh, probably. Yeah, probably. And then next up, we have Aquaman Green Arrow, The Deep Target, issue 1, which I guess is a new miniseries. So
7-issue mini. We spoke about this already, right?
Yeah, we already spoke about this, so we can move on. But cool. And then we got the really interesting, weird one here, which is Batman: The Audio Adventure Special, which is a one-shot, so I'm not going to count it. It's not a new series, but it is an 80-page one-shot where the cast of the audio podcast, which is part of HBO Max, are contributing stories to this one-shot. So this is kind of a weird tie-in to another medium, which is kind of...
Yeah, we spoke about the audio series because I was excited for it. I think it's got Jeffrey Wright as Batman.
Interesting.
Jeffrey Wright's definitely in the cast. I'm confident on that. I love audio dramas. I'm a sucker for them. So yeah, I'm excited for that. This I'm less excited for, but I mean it's an oversized one shot.
Given that they keep adding more books, I feel like an 80-page book like this that's so separate is probably going to get missed on the week it comes out.
Yeah, quite likely.
I'm fairly sure of it. One that's not going to get missed though, despite it being a almost 100-page book, because it is a celebratory issue, and we do tend to cover those. Wonder Woman 80th anniversary, 100-page super spectacular. Let's note that she already had one of these for her 750th issue, so they're having their cake and they're eating it too with Wonder Woman. The bastards.
This is why you say, "Oh, it'll get covered because it's an anniversary." I mean, you can cover, but I can't guarantee. I mean, they just had one of these like not that long ago.
Yeah, but I mean, we got Becky
within the last year, surely.
We got Becky, Cloonan, It wasn't the last year. It was longer than a year ago.
Maybe not. Maybe not by much though.
It was like January or something like that last year. I'm sure.
That's a year and a half.
You said within the last year.
All right, fine, but it's not that long ago.
Anyway, so story by Becky Cloonan, Michael W. Conrad, Jordi Belair, Mark Waid, Tom King, Steve Orlando, G. Willow Wilson, Amy Reeder, and more. So some interesting creative names in there for the writing side. We got Jim Chung, Polina Gian Cho, if I'm probably butchering that, apologies. Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, Amy Reeder, Evan Doc Shaner, Isaac Goodhart, Gabriel Piccolo, and more. So a lot of interesting names. That's what they always like. Every time I think, oh, maybe I wouldn't do one of these.
There's at least a handful of names in there that you're like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean Mark Waid doing DC work is a special thing to behold.
I mean, Luis Garcia Lopez is back doing interior work.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to.
That's huge.
And there's going to be a bunch of variants that are probably going to be wonderful. Although they can't do the decade ones anymore, unless they just do them again, because they already did the decade variants, but whatever. Yeah, there's a lot of nice covers already there. Fine.
Oh, that Bartel wraparound.
I'm still kind of pissed, though, that they just kind of ignored the fact that Supergirl had a 60th anniversary like last year.
Yeah, no one gives a shit about 60.
Right? And, what's his face? Writer from, like, before New 52.
Sterling Gates?
Yeah, that sounds right. He actually went to DC and said, "Hey, it's Supergirl's 60th. Can you do something? Because I'll contribute. I'll write one shot or something." And because he said this on Twitter, and it was basically the response from the executive or whoever it was that responded to him. Was basically it shrugged and went, "She's got a show." That was something like that. It was something to that effect. So it's a real shame. It's a real shame that certain characters get glossed over when I think 60th is just as cool. There's nothing wrong with 60th.
60s are nothing, yeah.
Yeah, because they weren't celebrating Batman and Superman's 60th 20 years ago. You know they were.
They shouldn't have been.
Shut up. And you know they're going to do all the centuries. In 20 years' time, and we're on episode 2000 or whatever this podcast, they're doing the 100th anniversary issues.
You know what? You're allowed to do 100.
I'm not going to argue against it, but it's a thing. Because it is worth mentioning, they're declaring October 1st, I think it is, Wonder Woman Day, because it's the actual anniversary. So, I'm sure Matt's fine with her getting a day, although he's probably going to cry into his pillow that Superman didn't really get as much of a spotlight. He didn't get the day to the same extent.
No, I mean, he did when Action 1000 came out. That was a pretty big Superman Day.
It was, but I don't know if they called it Superman Day, though, in the same way. Because there's a lot of stuff for Wonder Woman. There's a new series. I'll tally mark here. We got a Black Label book that was announced and teased so long ago, but it's finally on the Solicits and coming. This is a Kelly Sue DeConnick written, which is cool because we like her Aquaman. I've liked some of the stuff that I've dabbled in with her writing. Wonder Woman Historia, The Amazons, issue 1. This is a 3-issue prestige, 72-page per issue Black Label behemoth.
Prestige Plus again, so it's the different trim size.
Yep. The wait is over. You know what? I'm surprised I remembered this existed before, to be honest. So
I did just because I remember I remember this cover.
Yeah.
Like they announced this particular cover all that time ago.
Yeah, this was when there was a Black Label series of announcements, and then we thought Black Label was dead because they
You
went so
thought Black
long.
Label was dead, and then like 3 weeks later,
It was justified. It was a justified speculation at that time. They brought out the one with Batman's dick, and then it like just kind of went away.
Just stopped, and now you can't move for Black Label books.
Hey, and most of them have been great, so I'm not complaining.
No, do you know what? The batting average is pretty solid.
They started off on a really shaky, shaky dick-filled ground, shall we say? So yeah, so that's cool. It's coming. Look forward. But we got another new Wonder Woman related series.
Just before you move on, the interesting thing about that book as well is Jimenez is only doing the art for the first issue.
Okay.
Gene Hart and Nicholas Scott are doing issues, I assume 2 and 3 respectively.
It makes sense. I mean, there's 72 pages, so having an artist for each issue, because I presume that they're doing different eras of like Amazon history or something like that, because that was the premise, right?
I assume so, yeah.
So I've tallied down the next one, which is number 9 of new books. This is a miniseries, 1 of 6. This is Nubia and the Amazons, issue 1, story by Vita Yalea and Stephanie Williams, with art by Alitha Martinez. So here's the solicit text for this one. After the thrilling events of Infinite Frontier, Nubia becomes queen of Themyscira. So it's interesting to see some fallout from Infinite Frontier kind of starting to show up in these solicit texts. So I guess it's Nubia roll. We got Yara out there. Obviously, Diana we're expecting back. All these things. But now the new title also brings challenges. With the unexpected arrival of new Amazons, our hero is forced to reckon with her past and forge a new path forward with her sisters. Little does she know that a great evil grows beneath the island, and it's up to the former guardian of Doom's doorway to unite her tribe before the paradise is lost forever. So, yeah, neat. We'll definitely give that a try. I think I've enjoyed the teases of the character as much as I wasn't into the backup that she was in, but that was just only,
sure,
typical quality issues rather than anything to do with the character. So interesting, we're expanding the Wonder Woman line quite a bit here, where much like Batman and Superman, she's going to have a family of titles. And arguably already does, because Wonder Girl's already started, but neat. Then Wonder Woman, The Adventures of Young Diana Special Issue 1. This is a one-shot, obviously aimed at
so it's just a collection of all the backups that are in Wonder Woman right now.
Oh, really? Okay, so it's a reprint then. All right.
I mean, because at the minute you have to buy Wonder Woman, right?
True,
but
yeah.
You could buy this and just give it to the younger audience.
It's basically a small trade of just that stuff on its own,
essentially. Yeah. Which I'm kind of all for, given the target audience for that is so separate anyway. It makes sense to me to have that just as an accessible thing to hand to the kids.
I feel like they'd be better fitted though, like putting a hardcover on it and actually releasing it. Maybe put a few extras in, so it's actually on bookstore shelves. It feels like releasing this as a one-shot comic feels like it limits it a little bit for reaching that audience, but
yeah, that's fair.
It is what it is. There's a Wonder Woman issue 1 special edition. This is a free / 25 cent.
Well, it's 25 cents to retailers, but the idea is it's free.
Yeah. It's just a reprint, right? Of
it is, yeah.
Past stories, and much like that,
I think that's just the first issue of the Rucker run.
Yeah, and much like that, there's a couple other these free one shots. So they're basically just 3 comic book based style things, but they're previews of some of the graphic novels that have come out or are coming out. So you have Wonder Woman: The Tempest Toss Special Edition issue 1. So it's just a preview. It's like 40 pages of the graphic novel, and then same with Diana, Princess of the Amazon Special Edition issue 1. Same idea. Although this one less pages, 32 instead of 40, but same idea. Cool. It's basically just here's a teaser of these graphic novels to maybe convince people to maybe come back and buy the full books. Nothing wrong with that. So neat. And now we got something back, which I'm glad is coming back. I was worried it might not, but Hill House Comics is making its return in October, no less, which makes sense.
Once again.
Yeah, so I'll tally this one down because this is a new miniseries, although it's obviously a spiritual sequel to one of the previous series, and that is called Refrigerator Full of Heads. Obviously, a play on the basket full of heads from before. And our friend Tim, co-host of Screams After Midnight, did crack a joke, which did pop me a little bit, which is this is suitable for DC. because of course the term fridging someone did come from DC. It still baffles me that that's become a term in critiquing popular fiction of any kind and like mainstream. It was
Gail Simone who coined it, right?
I think so, yeah. But it came from a Kyle Rayner story of all places. A Kyle Rayner Green Lantern story in comics is what led to the fridging of someone, which is now used when people talk about movies and TV shows. It's just kind of fascinating that that's where it came from. I mean, how many people who use that term now could even tell you who Kyle Rayner is? I bet it's a low percentage.
About 3%.
I'm going to say a little bit higher, just because the people who might use that term are likely to be maybe skew a bit nerdier.
That's fair.
So I'll maybe go. I'd maybe say about 15%. I think I'm going to say about 15. Sure. But anyway, so this is written by Rio Ewers. A
crime novelist, apparently. Oh yeah, the end of the solicit text.
Never heard of them, and I apologize if I'm butchering the name, but I think that's how you go with that. Tom Fowler is on art. 6-issue book. Cool front cover. Hell House Comics is back, and heads are going to roll for making readers wait. The new wave of titles begins with a rancid return trip to the bloody Brody Island. For a year now, the mysterious axe that unleashed a pandemonium during the hurricane of '83, which is what the first book was, has waited at the bottom of the bay, but nothing that powerful stays buried. Brody Island has new visitors and a new sheriff in town too, not to mention a dangerous great white shark. Given how much that first book sort of like referenced Jaws and harking back to Jaws and the vibe of the town, the fact that we're actually bringing in a shark is kind of wonderful. And when a vacationing couple, Calvin Beringer and Arlene Fields, I feel like Arlene's a reference to a character from something, but I'll have to think about it, find themselves on the wrong side of Brody's unsavory elements, their beach combing will turn up something a lot sharper than sea glass. So this is neat. Obviously, I was mildly disappointed that it wasn't Joe Hill writing, because I really enjoyed that miniseries. I know not everyone was as hot on it as I was, but obviously it's open season. Rio here might be great. I don't know.
This is still Joe Hill curating the line, allegedly. Yes. So his name. Interestingly, it said that the new wave of titles begins with this, which implies there are more still to come.
It would surprise me if they're just doing one a month, maybe, to start.
Given the amount of new titles that they've got this month, I can't blame them. Even
though it would make sense to start them all in October, but I kind of appreciate that they didn't for time reasons. So that is cool. Was
that book number 10?
That was book number 10. I concur with that. And then we got another horror book here, another new one, DC Horror Presents. So they did DC Horror Presents The Conjuring the Lover, which was a tie-in to the Conjuring movies, obviously. So this is separate from that. This is just DC Horror Presents Soul Plumber Issue 1. Which, without reading the text, which I'm about to do, I don't think ties into anything, but we'll find out. So, 6-issue book, again, this is a story by Marcus Parks, Henry Zabrowski, and Ben Kissel, with art by John McCrea. So we get 3 names on the writing.
John McCrea, I believe, just did the issue of Swamp Thing.
That sounds right, yeah. That sounds right.
Last issue, like 5, that we kind of loved.
I can see it in the cover, actually. They look similar, art style-wise. Yeah. I can see it. Which is a good sign, actually.
That's a good eyes, especially for a horror book.
Yeah. From the creators of Last Podcast on the Left. Do you know what? I vaguely heard this week, that they were collaborating with DC. And I didn't realize it was this. So exorcism just got a whole lot easier. After attending a seminar hosted in a hotel conference room by a mysterious group called the Soul Plumbers, Edgar Wiggins, disgraced former seminary school student, discovers that he thinks the secret to delivering souls from the thrall of Satan. But after stealing the blueprints and building the machine himself out of whatever he can afford from the salary as a gas station attendant, Edgar misses the demon and instead pulls out an interdimensional alien with dire consequences for all of mankind. So he tries to basically become like a do-it-yourself Ghostbuster.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then accidentally unleashes an interdimensional alien. You know what? This sounds like fun. I like the cover. I like the art from that issue of Swamp Thing. So and I'm all for more DC horror, to be honest.
And Last Podcast on the Left is pretty well regarded.
People love that show. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. Yeah. So very neat. Do they make for good comic book writers? We'll find out. But
Yeah, the only other time I can think of comic book writers, comic book creators doing comics was there was a couple during the War of the Realms tie-ins from Marvel.
yeah, you actually just the sentence you just said was the only time I remember comic book creators writing comic books.
God damn it!
And I'm like, I'm pretty sure almost every comic book we've ever read falls under that descriptor.
God damn it! You podcast creators.
Yes, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, why would you forget the word podcast? It's not like you interact
it's not like I'm on one right now.
So there you go. So that's Soul Plumber,
and hence ticks off my 11 new books.
You're right. I didn't tally the 11th. I was like, I only got 10, but it was that one.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. And sadly, for my time and reading's sake, I was interested in almost all of them. So.
Yeah, that's a lot of books.
Hopefully I didn't check the dates as we were going, but hopefully they're nice and spread out throughout the month.
They're almost certainly like all stacked on week 2 or 4.
You know what? It's fine. You know what? We'll just have to break a record that week for podcast length. Join us this week for the 6-hour edition of Comics from the Multiverse.
I will be asleep halfway through.
I'm just going to joke 6 hours until we get there, because then when it turns out to be 4.5, it won't seem so bad. That's the plan. So the rest of the books here should be quicker, because this is just going through what's expected. Action Comics 1036. It's coming out. More Phillip Johnson. Sean Lewis presumably on the backup. Nice enough cover. Cool.
The only interesting thing about this is, as seen by the cover, Superman's leading the Authority team there, which obviously we've got the Grant Morrison mini.
Since you mentioned that,
setting that up.
Since you mentioned that, I'll mention the news here related to that, which is that was meant to be double shipping the 4 issues, and instead, at the behest of retailers, might we add, retailers requested, and based on their feedback, DC have decided to delay issue 2, which was supposed to be out the same month as issue 1, and they're going to come out monthly instead. So this is actually something where, because of the type of book it is, and maybe the pre-orders, perhaps.
There is an exception to that. I mean, the reason that they could get out so quick anyway was we've known about this book.
It was all done
in some form or other for over a year, so it's definitely all done. Issues 3 and 4, which are the final issues, are still only 2 weeks apart. So September 14th and September 28th. I think that is because we've got like this Action Comics issue in October, presumably near the start of October.
Yeah, they also mentioned
they needed this out first.
That all of issue 2 will be returnable to retailers. So they're making it very friendly to retailers to have people jump on for this. So that's neat. That's neat. I wasn't expecting that to actually tie into the current Superman books, but here it is. That's an action. So it sounds like it may actually be super relevant. So even if I'm
you might actually have to read it.
If I'm not feeling it, I may have to just struggle through it for the sake of knowing what the hell's going on. Then again, it's a Grant Morrison book. I might still not know what's going on.
Bold claim there, though, that the biggest Superman event since the death and return of Superman begins here.
Oh, that is very bold. But I mean, honestly, Johnson, he's been pelling on the weight of the Superman stories. They feel big and heavy, so it wouldn't surprise me, to be honest, if he actually pulls it off.
It might be true, yeah.
Aquaman: The Becoming issue 2. Of course, this is a new mini. Where did I say last week? I said the wrong name.
You said Khalid.
I did say Khalid. That's right.
Yes.
So that's cool. Calder was what I meant to say, but even that's still technically wrong. And
even that, you meant Jackson.
I meant Jackson. Jackson Hyde. Well, it's not my fault. He's got like multiple names that aren't consistent.
Every superhero has multiple names.
Well, yeah, but he has 3 because he also has Aqualad.
All right, fine.
And technically 4 now if he's becoming Aquaman. Now he's got a 4th name.
Sure.
But anyway, so issue 2 of that. That's just issue 2 of 6. We got Batman 89 issue 3. I am looking forward to checking out these movie continuation books. So, do we know who that's meant to be on the cover? It's just a random cop? Because I don't recognize it looking like anyone from the movie.
Yeah, I don't recognize it.
Yeah. So, hey. That variant's very pretty, actually. Oh, baby.
That's because it's Lee Weeks. And Lee Weeks can draw some art.
Oh, jeez. That is a gorgeous cover. Batman And Bigby, A Wolf in Gotham issue 2. This is the crossover with what do we call it?
Fables.
Fables. That's the name of the book. So that's still going. Cool. Batman Reptilian issue 5 of 6. This is the Garth Ennis Black Label book. So that's cool. We got Batman The Adventure Continues season 2 issue 5, so that's still going. We got Batman Catwoman issue 8 of 12, so that's about 2/3 through then. Come October.
I don't know if you noticed last time, but issues 7, 8, and 9 will all have Liam Sharp on art.
I don't know if I did notice that actually.
Yeah.
I guess it's just to give Clayman a chance to just do those last few. And
Yeah. Sharp confirmed it on Twitter earlier.
maybe there'll be a slight creative reason as to why the art's different for those 3 issues. Maybe they'll like have a.
I will give. I realize I haven't always loved Tom King's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't always love his Batman, but it always felt really neat when it changed artists.
Yeah, you always seem to have like an in-story reason that justified having a different style. So maybe there's like a genuine kind of interlude quality to these 3 issues that will make it. Maybe not. Maybe it's just like we have to have a different artist. And Liam Sharp's not a bad guy. I mean, he's not similar to Clayman in any way, so I'll be interested to see how they pull that off.
Which makes you feel like it has to be doing something different.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to feel really jarring.
Yeah. Black Manta issue 2. I'll be honest, I forgot there was a Black Manta mini that started the previous Solicits, but there you go.
Me too.
There it is. Blue and Gold issue 4, aka Matt's most anticipated book of the century.
I'll leave it out next week.
So that's still going. Challenge of the Super Sons issue 7, reprinting the digital series, still going. Checkmate issue 5. Oh, look at that. A gorgeous Alex Maleev cover. Who would have thought it?
Is that not a mini?
Sorry?
Is Checkmate not a mini series?
I believed it was, yeah.
I was under the impression it was, but there is no mini series tag on that solicit.
It could just be a simple solicit, mess up, or it could just be that it changed to an ongoing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, out of all the things Bendis is doing right now, it's easily the thing I've liked the most. There's only been 1 issue, admittedly, but
That's fair.
Crushing Lobo issue 5, so that's still going. DC Horror presents The Conjuring the Lover issue 5, so that's still not quite done. This is the last issue here. This is the 5th and final issue of that series. Deathstroke Inc. issue 2. So that's the
Forgot about that as well.
Yeah, I forgot about this. Joshua Williamson's writing this as well.
Deathstroke in space.
Oh dear. Future State Gotham issue 6. This is an ongoing, yeah. I couldn't remember if that was.
I believe the idea was it was going to change to different
that's right.
stories anyway.
That's right. Green Lantern issue 7, so that's still going with Jeffrey Thorne. Sinestro's on that cover there. Still to be, unless it's going to be a black and white cover, which it could be, but it's I assume it's going to be.
Very nice cover if it is, though.
Yeah. Hardware season 1 issue 3. This is your Maelstone book. So that's going. Harley Quinn the animated series, Eat Bang Kill Tour issue 2. Are you excited for this?
I am.
Tie-in series, yeah.
I mean, that series is phenomenal. So more, please.
I think you were missing a last solicit, so I don't know if you spoke.
Probably was. I'm sure Matt was excited for it though.
Icon and Rocket season 1 issue 4. Again, more Maelstone books still going. Justice League 69. That's a nice Naomi cover there.
No, it is.
Taking a selfie. Very hip with the kids. Justice League Infinity issue 4. This is the GM Demetes and James Tucker book, which, I'm probably not even going to try issue 1 of this.
No, this is the one continuing the Justice League Unlimited show continuity.
So, I mean, it may be really fun, but there's just no room for it. Much like Justice League Last Ride issue 6, even though it's Zarsky, issue 2 came out on a busy week.
Can we talk about how good that cover is?
It's a very nice cover. Is that Derek Robertson, that one?
I don't know Robertson and Choi well enough to know.
Yeah. It's a very menacing dark side cover, where he's holding up Superman by the cape. It's very, very pretty. It's very painted looking. Got a lot of paint splotches.
Like oil pastels.
Yeah. Legends of the Dark Knight issue 6. Becky, Cloonan, Matthew Rosenberg. That's cool. This is a digital reprint series, right?
It doesn't mention it in that text, but I was under the impression yes.
The funny thing is I feel like I'd have tried this when it started, but obviously it's already started and I didn't try it. So was it just busy that week and I just glossed over it? Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
weird. Mr. Miracle, Source of Freedom, issue 6 of 6, so that's wrapping up in October. Pennyworth, issue 3. I forgot this existed.
There's so much the Solicits that I forgot existed.
Yeah. So I don't expect I'll continue. This is issue 3 of 7 for the record. This is a miniseries.
And this is the one that's tied into the show, right?
Yeah, which is pretty much why I'm not even probably going to try it, to be honest. Easy skip for me, I think. Robin, issue 7, still going. Robin's reading his manga. Little twerp that he is. We got Ruby Justice League issue 7. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You, issue 112. Shazam issue 4, wrapping up that tie-in miniseries to the Teen Titans stuff. We got Static season 1 issue 5. That's still going. That's 5 of 6. And Suicide Squad issue 8. Robbie Thompson series still going. Suicide Squad King Shark issue 2, which I also kind of forgot about. But this is Tim Seeley writing this, so I'm actually...
It's Scott Collins on art.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That was like one of those things last month that was like, oh, this might be kind of fun. So we'll see. Superman 78, issue 3. Well, that second cover on that one's quite nice. Lois sitting on the Daily Planet globe and
another Lee Weeks cover.
Oh, I guess he's just doing both of those then. Those movies.
I guess he's doing variants for both those books. Yeah.
Superman vs Lobo issue 2. Tim Seeley and Sarah Beatty. I'd forgotten about it, but I remember it now. I'm seeing the team with Mika and Dolpho on the art. So, you know what? DC, stop putting out interesting things. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I'm sure some of them won't actually be that great, and I'll be happy to drop them. But on paper, a lot of these things are interesting.
Too much.
Superman, Son of Kal-El issue 4, of course, our Tom Taylor Superman book, which we are very much excited for.
We should mention the slight news to that, in that the first issue has been delayed
by 2 weeks.
Yeah, it was supposed to be this week. We should have been talking about it today.
Which,
kind of glad we're not, given how many books we have.
Yes, I was going to tell Matt the good news that it's been delayed out of a week that he is missing. But unfortunately, it's been delayed to a week that he's also missing. Because Matt's back next week and then off again for a weekend. So
yeah, they delayed issue 2 as well, which was supposed to be week 2 in August. So they've delayed that to week 4 in August.
So it's just a week 4 book now, I guess.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, this claims it's week 2, but we'll see how much this week 4 pushback dominoes on.
Yeah.
So Teen Titans Academy issue 8 next. Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 7. The Flash 775. A lot to talk about on that. And interestingly, this is a $5 48-page issue, which I think they have been oversized.
Yeah, definitely some of those issues were. Like, I remember the first one definitely was.
So, yeah, I mean, I do kind of appreciate them going with a different tactic to this, where they're not doing a backup, they're just going to make it bigger. And it's like the main story has more time. So instead of double shipping, you get a bigger issue every month. I mean, I think that's interesting.
Or they do what they did this time and throw in an annual, and it's double shipping and oversized.
1 month, though. I mean, I can't be too bad.
Yeah.
Joker issue 8. So that's still going, of course. And then, you know, let's give Flash some credit here. It's $1 cheaper than Joker, but actually has more pages. I just wanted to point that out.
Yes, because what they're doing with Joker is bullshit.
Yes. Anyway, Joker Presents Puzzle Box issue 3, which has had kind of a weird release digitally, because I was meaning to kind of try this, but then it kind of had a weird release and it was hard to kind of fit in. These digital first things are always hard to manage.
Yeah, I don't think they've done the first issue in print yet.
No, I don't think so. Nice House in the Lake issue 5, obviously we're looking forward to that. It's a very nice cover, actually, with all the meteors or whatever.
I will say, I am quite annoyed at what DC are doing with this book. You know, what's the thing that we've been asking for after the 2 issues?
Oh, like on the credits page, or a
cheat sheet. Yeah. Oh, they're doing it as a 1/25 variant cover on the issue 1 or 2 third printing.
You know, it's bad to the point where I feel like I'm going to have to just go and get this cover and have it up on my screen on my computer when I'm reading, just so I can refer to it when I'm reading the book, which I shouldn't have to do. So
no,
damn you, DC. The Swamp Thing issue 8. Speaking of nice covers,
God damn Perkins.
I know. It's a really nice tree. That's all I'll say. It's a really nice tree.
Mm.
Titans United issue 2.
I forgot about this.
Yeah, I don't even remember what this is. What the hell is this? There's a cover. Some plot against them. Cavan Scott, Jose Lewis.
This is the one that was the weird Titans team.
Oh, right? Yes. And because Steph's on the team, which made me think, I have to try it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Cavan Scott has done a lot of Marvel Star Wars stuff. He's actually done a lot of Star Wars stuff in general. I'm reading a Star Wars novel by him right now, which is just enough to get me interested, I guess.
Yeah, I'll try it just because the members on the team. Wonder Girl issue 5, obviously excited. It's been good. Also 6, we're double shipping. We're double shipping in October. Look at that.
Yeah, issue 5 has been resolicited from September, so I guess it's been delayed.
Oh, it's delayed. Okay, so we're not going to get one in September. Okay, fair enough. All right. Okay.
And issue 6 is a different artist, Leila Del Duca, who the name does ring a bell.
It was probably bound to happen at some point.
Yeah.
Cover's still very pretty though. I mean, it's obviously, I assume it's still. It might not be actually. The colors are very similar to the.
No, it's Matteo Scalera cover according
Yeah.
to the text.
I felt like it was just the faces that gave it away. I felt like the rest of it could have passed.
Yeah.
For Jones, but the faces just kind of gave it away there. Wonder Woman 780, just the ongoing.
Which, by the sounds of it, because this is an oversized issue. There's no backup in this one. They're doing like what Flash has.
Yeah.
And is the return of Diana to the regular world.
Yeah, just oversized in the sense that there's no backup. It's not like any bigger or more expensive than normal.
But they've taken those pages and used them for the main story.
Yes. And this is her coming back to the world, right? Back to regular continuity. Wonder Woman Black and Gold, issue 5, so that's still going as well. So neat. And that wraps up the single issues, finally. What a Solicits that was. Just, I'm happy to see they're still doing the Batman Dark Knight Detective books, collecting the old Detective Comics issues. Volume 6 of that's in these Solicits, which is nice to see. So, that's cool.
A new reprinting of a Long Halloween Dark Victory Deluxe. Is that both of them? Or is that...
Or they're naming it that way now so that it's a sequel.
The new edition of an all-time classic features the gripping sequel.
I don't know.
I think it's just the sequel.
There's no page. Why is there no page count? That's weird.
There are 416 pages.
Oh, it's just that one then, because that's 13 issues. It's just the one.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, they're both
weird naming convention.
Long Halloween's 12 issues. Dark Victory's 13 because it's got a 0 issue. So yeah, it's just the one. They're just naming it that way so it's a sequel, which is just clunky.
It is. I guess we're far enough away from Long Halloween now that there are casual audiences that would have no idea.
But yeah, we'll just put it as a separate thing. It's Batman Dark Victory, and then have like a bubble that says the sequel to Batman: The Long Halloween, just on the cover. Just do that.
I know.
Like, why you gotta make it weird? So that's cool. Yeah, very interesting. I'm just skimming these trades to see if there's anything else that sticks out as being notable. Superman Batman Omnibus Volume 2. Cool. That's the one that started with Loeb. Obviously, Loeb was far gone from it by the time.
Yeah.
By the time that happened, but by the time this what this omnibus contains, but that's just that run. So
Rambi, Swamp Thing. It's interesting to see how they're collecting that, which is the 2 issues of the Future State and then issues 1 to 4 of the main book. So I assume then the rest will be
because that makes that a 12-issue book, right? Because it's 10 issues is the actual run. So that means
smart.
That'll be 2 6-issue books. That does make sense. So cool. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, and Wonder Woman Silver Age Omnibus Volume 1. So they're starting off Silver Age Wonder Woman, which is actually really nice because it felt like Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman feel like it was just Golden Age. So it's nice to start to do Silver Age stuff for those Trinity characters. And usually because it means that they eventually end up digitally as well, because it's this era that tends to be missing when you look in Comixology or DC Universe. So this hopefully means that a lot of those issues will be getting remastered and end up on the
Yeah.
digital platforms. So cool. All right, there you go. October solicits, and oh boy, what a solicits they were.
October's going to be busy.
It's going to be a busy October, which of course it's all. Why is October always super busy when I want to be watching horror movies? I want to like do lots of horror stuff in October, and DC always seem to hit me with.
In their defense, at least some of those books were horror.
But it's not just DC. Like TV tends to be busy in October as well, typically. So everything,
Generally speaking, around the start of the network season, isn't it?
everything tries to be busy when I just want to watch horror movies in October. Anyway, there you go. That's the October solicits. Well then, let's talk about books. Infinite Frontier issue 2, Joshua Williamson writing. And when I looked up online, like the cover was missing a lot of names, so I didn't read on the artists. But we got Paul Pelletier, we got Jesus Marino, we got Mariko.
Those are all the pencilers.
Yes. So whole bunch of names. And we have obviously all these plot threads to continue. We got Chase coming to the Hall of Justice. We got more stuff with Roy, and kind of further complicating whatever this ring is that is kind of a Black Lantern ring, but has some other qualities. And then obviously, we might even call it a dark side ring by the time this issue ends. So Chase is snooping around Hall of Justice. Superman and Batman are dealing with her. And she's kind of asking questions about the multiverse, and they're like, look, we're handling it. You know, we talked about everything that needs to be talked about. And she's making it clear that, look, people, this is not enough anymore. People are aware that universes have reset and things have changed. We have to actually be more upfront about this. I did kind of like how Batman just went, you're working for Bones, aren't you? He sent you here.
Yeah. I got really distracted by some terrible lettering in this sequence.
Oh?
I think it's the third page. It's after the double layout. You have Batman kind of in the top half of the page, and his foot sticks into a bubble underneath, and all the text is offset around his foot, and it just looks ugly, and it's horrible. I don't know why they didn't either move the bubble lower down, or
just have his feet behind.
Have his feet behind the bubble, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it would actually affect the page that much if it wasn't like a pop out panel. If the Batman was just his feet went behind the other panels, it was fine.
I think it would be fine personally.
Yeah. It didn't bother me. It's kind of an old school comic book thing. I feel like you see that in older comics a lot.
But something just for me, I think it's like poor. I don't want to blame the letterer because I'm assuming they were told no, Batman has to be on the top layer. But if it was me, I'd be moving those bubbles around entirely to start them lower. Have 2 below her face rather than 2 above. Yeah, just to avoid that because I think it looks hideously ugly.
Yeah. So we see all the evidence of around the multiverse of various members of Justice Incarnate going after parts of this ship. Obviously, the Flashpoint Batman. He landed from like an escape pod on it, and we get kind of some teasing and seeding of what's going on here. Calvin, President Superman, is talking to him, try to get to the bottom to it. He kind of brings him with him to check things out, but he tells a story of being taken from Arkham.
Yeah.
And ultimately escaping when this ship was ready to crash. And he says he woke up.
Interesting. Again, alongside this, we're talking with Harbinger.
Yeah.
Which again is another thing that ties this story back to,
Crisis.
The Crisis. Obviously, we're already playing with Psycho Pirate, but it's just another thing that's like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah, there was actually a moment here where I thought Flashpoint Batman actually intentionally set up President Superman. There's like a moment where they're looking at the ship where it's been kind of reassembled and there's a blast, and the way it kind of played, I thought, I think it's because of the little tease panel where it's clearly on Darkseid's the voice talking to people, but it says you're the last son of a dead reality, and then it's Calvin turns and says, Thomas, what are you? As if he's like noticing that there's something wrong. The rest of the scene doesn't play that way though, so I don't necessarily think he did. But
No, I think he notices that he's kind of spaced out.
yeah,
Hearing that, and I really don't. The reason it never crossed my mind is because the reaction that he has, on that big panel where has the boom across it, and he's being hit by the
it immediately
like,
didn't, but it was just in that little sequence of a couple of panels. It felt like that, but then
yeah,
Miguel
fair
shows
enough.
up.
So he's a
So
villain again.
he's a villain again. He's yes. This is one of the things that's been reset. So that's a bit of a cliffhanger there. We then cut to what's currently left of the JSA plus Vandal Savage. Talking about where Jade is, what's going on. She's missing. A bit of a debate breaks out, and the fight even with Vandal. They're talking about how a lot of these other JSA members have came back, but not everyone necessarily remembers who they are, and they actually had to really hunt down where some of them were because they were hard to find. But they're not sure about Jade right now. They're not sure where Jade is. And Obsidian's
Yeah,
like, no.
obviously, she was in this building that blew up
Yes.
last issue.
And
like, where is she on? Who's taken her?
And Obsidian's like, no, we need to go do something. Let's go find. Let's go track down enemies of the JSA. Let's go.
I believe his argument is, then we go kick ass.
That is true, because it comes back, because the next time at the end is next time Alan Scott and Obsidian go and kick ass. I believe is what it says at the end. So it's a thing here where you almost think that maybe Alan might actually kind of side with Vandal a little bit. That they've got bigger things to focus on. But Vandal basically talks down to Obsidian, and Alan whacks him with a giant green hammer, out of his ring energy. And says, "Don't ever speak to my children like that again." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go kick ass with my son." And there's a really nice transition here where they walk into the infinite black of Obsidian's portal effectively, and it transitions out to the point where I actually thought for a second is Roy in the shadows. Okay. But then, of course, it's clear, obviously the next page, it's clear that we're just zooming out, it's like a camera trick. It's a camera transition. The joke this was obviously better, but it was kind of like one of those Arrow flashback transitions.
Oh, God, it was. They did that a lot, didn't they? Where they zoom in on an object and then come back out.
Yeah, it was like one of them. So Roy's looking at this ring. He's like, what the hell? He can't really get it to work properly. He's remembering, talking to Hal Jordan when he met him as Speedy. And Hal's sort of explaining how his ring works and willpower and how he's in control of it, and it kind of it's a nice little reminder to go back to this earlier days stuff, this Silver Age era of the superheroes. And sure enough, he gets control of the ring and he's able to fly about a little bit, and he does some target practice with he makes an arrow, shoots it to constructs of Deathstroke and Vertigo and whoever the third one is. I can't remember.
Good question.
But it's just him getting accustomed to this, and he's like, wait, Hal's ring talks, does my ring talk? And he starts asking the ring questions. He also jokes that, am I called Black Arrow now? No, that's probably too silly. Jason would make fun of me, which gave me a chuckle. But that's
Jason
when
wouldn't be the only one.
The ring kind of explodes from here, though. Like it's like an explosion of the ring energy, and it shows him stuff that he's not intending. And it's interestingly, you get Darkseid at the back, you've got this new version of Psycho Pirate at the front, you got Flashpoint Batman, you've got Barry and chains. So it's all stuff that's going on in the book. It's all these different things. And then, of course, he sees his daughter, right? And he's like, alive. And of course, this is stuff that we're playing with. We've teased this off another book. So there's a lot of good continuity stuff between the books right now. And even some of the stuff in this feels like it nicely fits in with the Flash annual from today as well.
Really?
Just in the idea of Roy's past and stuff, because Roy is in that issue. So it just kind of feels like there's a lot of thematic stuff linking nicely. So basically, he demands to know where his daughter is. He's like, because this is a big shock to him, of course. And clearly, this event, the Infinite Frontier, the end of Death Metal and everything else, obviously a lot of things have came back, right? A lot of people have came back. So this all ties in nicely. But it says Darkseid is, and of course at the end of this sequence, his Black Lantern symbol turns into the Omega symbol on his chest. So he is
It says, "Come to me, my Black Lantern."
Yeah, so lots of wild stuff here. Roy's a big prominent figure in this story, and I like that it's not like, because they could have teased the mystery of like, oh, where did the ring come from? Why does he have the ring? But immediately it's like, no, this connects to Darkseid. Darkseid's behind this, so they're not holding back on this too much, which is nice.
Yeah,
so
it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, really neat. Obviously, one thing to say is that we have a lot of artists. We're shifting between art, part to part.
It mostly gets away with it because it's so disconnected, section to section. Which is probably my biggest complaint about the book, is that it feels like a series of vignettes for the most part.
Which I think, in a way, does make it feel like a crisis in some ways, because I think crises often have that feel when they're jumping around all the different characters and how the events are. I think right now it maybe feels more separate because I'm assuming the story is going to pull them more together as it goes on.
I was going to say, I think the difference is in most crises, you're seeing how the inciting event is affecting them, or they're working towards a specific goal. This feels a little bit more aimless right now. No, not that I'm saying that there's no clear objective that the writers have. I'm sure they have a purpose. But for our character, like this stuff with Roy, we're just kind of watching it unfold. Well, there's no agency.
It's kind of 50-50, because I feel like it does tie into Darkseid, which is obviously the stuff with Barry and Psycho Pirate last issue. And then this next part with Captain Atom and Chase also ties into Darkseid. So, there are threads that are starting to already kind of tie these things together. So Captain Atom, who again is back, he's going to hang out
allegedly
at barracks. Yeah, Chase starts talking to him. But there's basically the whole thing where he refers to their past, and she's like, I've never met Captain Atom before, and pulls a gun on him. So who are you? And it turns out he's a Captain Atom from a different Earth, or at least that's the implication. And effectively, he says she doesn't understand what's going on in the multiverse. I can't let you take me in. So he starts to rip open his chest, and light comes out, and before he explodes, he just says, Darkseid is. So this is the cliffhanger as well, because this is it's just a mushroom cloud.
Yeah.
It's a mushroom cloud. So I don't expect Chase is dead, just because we've just been starting with her, and she's been such a prominent character in the book, but I don't know how she survived this.
Wouldn't it?
Maybe, I don't know, portal to some, maybe Darkseid pulled her out at the last second because he's got plans for her, or maybe someone else pulled her out at the last second.
Typical comic book answer, but I'd be impressed if they did kill her, in the sense of it would feel like a shock.
It would,
because it would feel like, no, we built up just enough recently with her that it's like, no, this feels like she's going to be around.
Yeah, she felt like one of the main, like, say, 6 characters that are really important to the story. And so if this is a true killing off of the character for now, then...
Yeah, I like how they referenced the Lois book as well at the start of this.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that too. Again, it feels like the writers have been allowed to really embrace continuity, which was just like a mandate before, but they weren't allowed to. So
yeah.
And it seems like comic book writers actually really like it. What's funny is I got to the end of this, and there's this thing that's actually at the back of all the issues, but I read it here because it felt really, because I read this first.
I did as well. I didn't realize this was the ad of the week.
Yeah, but it was a kind of a nice thing. It was like a summary of, like, okay, these are all things connected to Infinite Frontier and the multiverse. And it's, one, what team is Oracle forming and why? Which, okay, I'm interested.
That'll be the Batgirls team, surely.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying it like that.
Yeah.
I'm interested. What is Fear State? Why is Clark Kent leading a new version of the Authority? Will Jonathan Kent be able to fill his father's shoes as Superman? Can Wonder Woman escape the God Sphere and return to Earth? Which heroes wearing a Black Lantern ring? We kind of already know that. But again, if given that this is technically an ad that has appeared in other books, it makes sense it's also promoting this book. So fair enough.
Yes.
Has the fastest man alive outrun his past? And how is Roy Harper alive? So it's basically all the things that are going on, and there's like a 2-page of Bones looking at all this stuff. And given that Bones is investigating all this, it does feel like they're using like kind of an in-universe way of like advertising. So that was neat. So
yeah, and then they just have a list of all the newish titles on the next page.
Yeah, where all these questions are going to be relevant, and many of them at least. So it's a fun ad. It's a fun ad that, at least on that when I first got to at the end of this, it felt like it was worth reading at least once. So,
I said that first page of it, I did not realize was an ad.
Neither did I. I thought it was like a back matter kind of thing.
Yeah, that was almost like a post-credit tease.
Yeah, like here's all the things, and it still kind of works though because it's like okay, a lot of these things are being like tying into this book, but they're actually going to be answered in their ongoings. So here, go and make sure you check out
And
whatever ones you want.
even the things like which hero is wearing a Black Lantern ring, obviously we know the answer to that, but Bones doesn't. So it didn't feel like it was an out of place being in this book. You know, if it wasn't an advert. So yeah, I'm in for it.
Yeah, no, so I had a lot of fun with this issue. It maybe didn't have quite the shock value of the stuff that issue one did, because issue one was like, hey, Darkseid's behind this, Psycho Pirate, there's a Black Lantern ring of some kind on Roy. All those things were obviously much bigger deals than anything this issue hits us with, but it did progress all those things. So,
yeah,
it's a main event style book in DC. I'm enjoying the ride, and like I'm interested in where all this is going. It may not be as well crafted as some of the more prestigious books that we're going to talk about perhaps later, but I can't deny that I'm a sucker for a lot of what this is playing with.
You like the big continuity events, is what you're saying?
In DC, I hate them in Marvel.
Yeah.
And
you hypocrite.
It's just a taste thing. I acknowledge it. It's what it is. All right, what are you rating Infinite Frontier issue 2?
I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I think I like all the stuff that's in it. It does feel a little bit disjointed and kind of meandering still for the end of issue 2 for me, and that lettering issue did bug me quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm not too fussed about the lettering thing. I mean,
it really bothered me.
I honestly like it, but it's not something that I really, it made the page feel a bit more crammed than it probably should have. But yeah, I mean, I will say that because it is juggling so many artists, it's hard to really just be enjoying the art, because it is just kind of like, we have a lot of artists because this book has to be done quickly as possible, and
none of the art's bad, but none of it's amazing. Like even like I know Zamanico's in here. I like Zamanico. This is not his best work.
It's just artistically, it doesn't have this creative soul focused vision that makes it feel special in that sense. It feels like an event book that's fun for continuity's sake and fun for all the things it's teasing, but it isn't a singular comic book reading experience. So I think it's worth pointing that out. I would happily give this the 8 though. I'm really enjoying the shenanigans of all of it. It's not done anything to upset me. So that's always worth mentioning. All right, Detective Comics 1039. This is Mariko Tamaki writing with Viktor Bognadovic on the art, continuing this story. We get a lot of the backstory of our villain in this issue. This is kind of our origin story.
Very glad that our characters reference the fact that Hugh Vile is a villain name.
Yes,
it really is.
No, it absolutely is. That first page is glorious, by the way. With the green glow and the black background, with these like parasite mouth open. It's all very good. So obviously they saved the reporter from the explosion. That was kind of our typical cliffhanger in the last issue.
Yeah, and then find out she's already infected.
Yes. Yeah, that comes up in a second when she, goes after them. But we see like the Batgirls are helping people because this explosion caused a lot of damage. Nightwing saving people. The gangster man, whose name I always forget. He's, Worth. There you go. Watching intently, but we come to, the backstory of our Vile, our Hugh Vile character, and he had this happen to him as a kid. He became infected, and he's sensitive to light, so that's going to be very important. That's a mechanic going forward that they can use to fight. But basically, it gave him this hunger. The thing inside him wanted to feed on fear, feed on death, feed on that kind of thing. He was always ravenous, but never wanted to eat actual food. Doctors tried to help him, but he discovered when he killed a random guy in a hospital that this was or not even kill. Sorry, he infected. He made him go and kill someone, which is obviously what he's been doing. Throughout the story. So all really interesting. Yeah, the reporter lady tries to kill Batman. Shanks him in the stomach.
A big shard of glass.
Worth was there with a gun, so he's like there. So there's a fight with Batman still going on with the flames behind him. There's a bunch of goons that he's hired like ex-Penguin goons and ex-Bane goon. You know, the whole entourage.
He's been on the app.
He's been on the app, yes, on the goon app. So Huntress ties up reporter lady, which is cool.
Donovan.
Yeah, and talks to Oracle. What's going on? That's where the villain named joke is, and all the rest of it. So yeah, I mean, all of this is just continuing the chaos of what's happening. But she goes after Vale. She sees Vale standing there. She goes in and confronts him, and he's very smug. He's like, "You're going to take me in now." He puts his hands out, and of course he lets the parasite come out, and it's a really good panel actually. They're in silhouette except the green parasite is green,
orange red glow behind them.
Yeah, from the fire. Yeah, the only thing other than the green glow is like his lens from his glasses is still visible. So
yeah.
it's a really effective artistic beat, but yeah. So Huntress has this in her now, and it kind of looks like he's passed it on as well, right? Like she's got the full.
Yeah, I got the impression that's how it works a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. It transfers over to the thing where it spreads.
Yeah.
And another little one to them.
Yeah, because she's got full on green tentacle things coming out of her mouth at this point.
Yeah.
And obviously Batman and Worth are just fighting. There's a cement mixer truck there, so he ends up covered in that. It's a whole fun thing. But sure enough, she starts firing arrows from her crossbow at Batman, and it becomes this fight between them. So it's a very action heavy issue. There's actually less plot to talk about, despite the fact that there's obviously the backstory stuff, because it's a lot of action. But the art is very good throughout all the action.
Bogdanovich, we tend to like anyway, but I think it's safe to say action is where he excels. Yeah,
and Huntress has a good moment here because she is able to sort of mouth the word light to Batman, and he flashes her with light, which is enough to kind of get her out of the predicament. So things calm down. Hugh Vale goes underground, seemingly with one of the Bane mask wearing goons.
Yep.
But there's sort of the aftermath. Nakano wants to know what's going on. Where's Worth? What happened to my city? There's a bunch of just sort of epilogue kind of moments of Oracle filling Batman in and stuff. Huntress is in a hospital bed. They're hoping they got to it. And so it's actually kind of the end of the arc because it says finale and it's sort of leading into where this goes, which is that Bruce says he can't hunt down Worth and hunt down Vile as both Bruce and Batman, so he's going to turn himself in. That's kind of our cliffhanger. So he's clearly got a plan. He's got a plan where he's going to turn himself in to infiltrate and get to the bottom of this. But
it should be fun.
Yeah.
There's some really nice lettering touches in this as well. Like once Huntress gets infected, she's got the wavy speech bubbles. Just it's really subtle at first as well.
It just makes it really distinct and clear that it's not her voice. It's the voice of the parasite effectively influencing her. So no, really strong stuff. It doesn't really end the story as much as it ends this act of the story because it's clearly not over. We still have the villains at play, which is not a complaint because I've been enjoying this story so much. I am more than happy for this to keep evolving and for this to keep going out. If anything, I wasn't ready for this to be over. So, if anything, the only surprise I had is that it technically called itself a finale, and I was like, "Oh, that didn't feel like a finale," but it's not also over. So
it feels like one of those books where it's the finale for the sake of having a neat point to put in a trade.
Yes,
but not really. It's just kind of one big story.
Yes, this is more of a 12-issue story as opposed to a 6-issue one or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
I assume this is 6 issues so far. I don't really know. I'd have to go back and check what number she started on.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But yeah, no, good, solid fun. Classic Batman panel at the end there. Is he standing in his face is in shadows, but you can see the outfit.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about the eyes. It makes him look like he's at a weird angle. But other than that, I do like it. I really like what he does with the cape.
It's basically just another angle of the pose that he has of that famous is it Hush I'm thinking of? Where he's on the Jim Lee?
Yeah, the Jim Lee on the Hush, yeah.
Yeah. It's basically just he's doing that pose, but from a different angle. We're seeing him from the front. So
yeah.
No, really fun stuff. What are you giving the main story?
I'll give it an 8, just about, I think.
Yeah, I'll give it a solid 8. It's funny because it's just an action issue, but they've kind of earned it because it's been all this great build up.
It was well done. It was fun. I haven't got much to really complain about. but it doesn't go above and beyond either. I don't think.
Yeah, and there's a lot of orange in the background and most of the fight stuff. So when it contrasts with the blue of like Oracle's location, or the page where it's just all the shadowy, meetings like talking about the aftermath, like it really distinctly sticks out.
Yeah.
It feels like it's over. And this book continues to really make good use of the backups, I feel. Because
That's interesting. I did not read this backup
oh really?
because, well, I got to it and I was like, it was more stuff about Hugh Vile,
Yes.
and I saw it wasn't Tamaki writing it like we've had on some of them, and I felt personally I was quite satisfied with the amount of Hugh Vile I had in the main issue. Like I had just enough of like backstory and what I wanted from this issue for him. I didn't want to sully that. I didn't want to overdo it.
Well, what's funny is that yeah, it works. It works in what you've got so far, but like it felt so natural once this got going that this was just like, okay, here's more of like what it was like for him, because in the main issue it says that he got this as a kid, right, and then he tried to live a normal life. This basically gets into like what he was like after, where he had a brother, right, and how he'd fight with his brother, his mother who was struggling to deal with him, and how he kept acting out, and how the incidents would escalate, and how he eventually made his mother, and he was still a kid at this point, basically made his mother kill his brother, right? And so she ends up, in prison. We see these papers react to this. Yeah. But it basically talks about it's effectively what this does is that it kind of explains how he's been operating. He stayed away from Gotham partly because Batman or whatever, but he actually loves Gotham because when he came back here as a young adult, he found that there was a lot of people to feed on. There was a lot of people to make do things. But it talks about how he learned very quickly that he didn't want to draw attention. If he made someone who was like an upstanding citizen suddenly murder someone, it would lead to questions. It would lead to Batman investigating it. So the backup here kind of like gets into the idea that he would target people who have anger issues already, or something like that. Someone that would, oh, this feels like the natural conclusion to this person's story. And it wouldn't, questions wouldn't be asked beyond a certain point. So it kind of gets into this. This is how he was able to get away with this for perhaps as long as he has, in Gotham. So, and it talks about how the Joker War in AD kind of like changed things and escalated things, and put him in this position with the mayor. That's basically it. So it's basically it does kind of unnecessarily frame it with him like kind of telling this to a guy in a diner who he infects at the end. But I just kind of felt it superfluous. I didn't really feel like it was necessary, but the actual core of it just kind of got into more detail about how he's operated, like, and getting more. It felt like it complemented what they mentioned in the main story well.
That's I think for me, I feel like I made the right choice in that I don't want to say that this is bad in any way. I'm sure you're saying it's pretty solid by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
I think I was right for myself in that I didn't want this. I had my fill. I didn't want more right now. Maybe I'll come back and read this, in another week where I want to go, okay, now I've got room for a bit more of this villain, in between issues. But right now, I was like, no, I got my fill in the main issue.
Yeah, I just, I gave it a chance because I was ready to not read the Penguin one last time, and that ended up in a really solid complement to the main story as well, because it gave you Penguin's motivations for how he acted in the main issue, so it was a nice little add-on to it. And this again felt like it fleshed out something that was there. So, yeah, I mean, I think this book has by far been the best use of the backup for me. Even when it's been different writers and it's not the main writer tackling the things, because we had the reporter issue, we had the Huntress little story because she's obviously been featured in the main book. All of these things have all added, and maybe they are all technically skippable. Like you could understand the main story just fine without all of them, but I do think they are complementing it quite nicely.
But always is the goal. I think if one of these becomes necessary to understand something, especially if it's one not by the same creative team, then somewhere along the line they've failed in their storytelling.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. I would say though that I can see this backup explaining things that some people who like to think they're smart would point out as a plot hole. Well, what's he been doing all this time, and why is he only showing up now? Like, stupid, annoying
Sure.
questions like that, which aren't actually that important. We could have easily not had those answered, but it does do that in an effective little way that makes sense and kind of fleshes out the character a little bit. So,
Yeah, I'm not arguing with that.
it's weird to raise these backups sometimes because I feel like I'd rather not rate this one separately because it nicely sits with the main story so much because it just continues on more of his backstory. So, I feel like on its own, would I give it an 8? No, but I feel like packaged with the book, I'm happy to give the issue an 8. Like, does that make sense?
It doesn't drag it down. So
Yeah.
if this was, hypothetically, if this was a 6, it's not dragging down your score from the 8 at all. But it's not worthy of an 8 in its own right.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, but it's part of this issue. It can fit, so I'll leave it at that and just make of that what you will, everyone. But that is Detective Comics 1039, another solid issue, and what I think's been a great run so far. So very cool. Action Comics Annual 2021 issue 2021. However we say this now. So
I think it's the Action Comics 2021 Annual Issue 1.
it's just
I don't think you really need to say the issue 1,
nah,
but for if you're logging it, cataloging it,
Yeah.
it would still be a 1.
yes. So this is Phillip Kennedy Johnson with Sia if I'm pronouncing that right, which I mean very well might not be. This brings us back to the
And
house.
Scott Godlewski on art as well on some of the
Sure,
pages.
yeah. Is that the Phantom Zone stuff?
I assume so.
So this is back to the future House of L stuff, but tying it into some of the War World stuff that's coming up as well. This idea that the framing device here is that whilst on War World there are supporters of Superman, but it's like you will be killed if you speak out in support of Superman, and this child's like carved out a little Superman toy for herself. And this old man, well, he's not even that old really, but this man is telling all the kids this story. We want a Superman story, so they all hush hush and they make sure they can't be heard. And he tells them a story. But I'm going to tell you a story about the past. I'm going to tell you a story about the future. So they even speculate at the end that the kid's like, "Hey, have you been to the future, Mister? Because you seem to know things." So obviously there's something brewing here with who this is, and
Yeah, it's an interesting one in that you could wave it away as like, no, it's just a story,
yeah.
But
And in a weird way as well, like because this stuff in the House of L is so far in the future, you could just sort of read it always as a possible future and not a guaranteed thing, because the comics eventually are going to go in another direction and just rule it out by
eventually,
nature by nature of writing. But so it's a story, and forgive me, this is one where I could use a cheat sheet for all these characters, but it's clear, it's easy to remember which one's which functionally when you're reading them. In that, it's very clear that the Nightwing looking one, and by Nightwing I just mean his hair. He's the Superman of Earth currently. In the
That's
context,
Brandon, I
that's
believe.
Brandon, yes. We have his younger daughter, he's training. She's got the sort of more ginger hair. You've got the Blue Lantern.
The Tamaranian, half Tamaranian, right?
You mean she?
She. Did I not say she?
I thought I said he. Yeah, which is weird for
I
daughter.
thought I said she, but
I'm sure I said it. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But like, you've got the Blue Lantern, L member who's the sister of. Is she the sister of Brandon or the sister of the one who's current Superman of War World?
Current Superman.
Right,
So,
okay.
well, is it of War World? You might be right. Yeah. So it's
because Brandon's current Superman of Earth, which
Yes.
Yes.
And then you've got Rowan and Ronan.
Yeah.
So Rowan is her, the Blue Lantern, and Ronan is him, Superman of War World. I'll take your word for it.
I think that's what they said, something like that. So, yeah. And then you've got a Bry or whatever they're calling the Brainiac one is with them.
Yeah, and then you've got Allura, who is the one getting married.
The one getting married, yes. And then you've got Kara, of course, who we do know, Superwoman, who is officiating this wedding. And Allura is marrying someone from Warworld who is taking the crest, and as we learn later, is going to take the name. He's going to take the L name.
Yeah.
And so, because of traditions on his side, I think they said, he has to challenge a member in combat from the L family as part of the wedding. Friendly combat, it's not to the death or anything. They're kind of joking about who gets to do it. And that's when the dodgy child, Peros, yes. And they all red. It's kind of like a red samurai thing he's got. The sort of the dressing around coming from his belt.
I can see that, the headband.
Yeah. So he's kind of the villainous son of Superman who's around. And Carol's like, oh, not this shit ahead again. So basically, the story here. So we've run down the characters because it's important to have at least some kind of a grasp on all these characters. And they're all likable. I wasn't as hot on that previous Future State issue that introduced these characters.
That me and Matt loved.
Because it went into the King Arthur stuff. And the more you talked about that, the less interested I got. Because I was like, well, I didn't get as much out of this. And it just, like, all you're doing is making it more confusing for me because I don't know that story that well. This on its own, I enjoyed more. Basically, he ends up trapping most of the family in the Phantom Zone. Everyone but Kara, basically, gets sent to the Phantom Zone. He adds some new lore to the Phantom Zone. At least it's new to me, as far as I can tell. And it's it's because the problem with that original story for me was never the characters. The characters all seem likable enough. It was just once it got to like Peros and like the stuff around him and like was where it got a little bit more convoluted. But the rest of them and their banter and the way they interacted with each other made me kind of like this future Superman family, which is impressive because normally when I get like a high concept thing like that, it's usually really hard to make me give a shit about all these like nobodies that you've introduced.
It's interesting because this is earlier in the timeline than what we got in that Future State issue.
Yes,
they're all younger here, because like Khan was definitely Khan-El in that issue for a start.
Yes.
So those things that obviously takes place later. I would not be opposed to getting like a mini series of these, or maybe the backup in action at some point could be these guys.
I can see either of those things. I can also see Superman somehow traveling to the future in storyline, and it just being an arc of the main book in action.
Yeah,
because there's so much stuff setting these guys up that there's something coming from them, and I like them all. I like them all a lot more after this issue. I'm happy to say.
That was it. Like one appearance in Future State, and you go, oh, okay. It could be just they needed an issue, right?
Because I did roll my eyes a little bit when I saw it with the annual was going to be them. I was like, I wasn't as into that, but it's actually quite good. So
it is. It's real good.
So basically, it turns out the Phantom Zone, which obviously Jor-El discovered but didn't create, which is a really key point to bring up here, is actually the mind of like a higher being, effectively
a godlike being called Atha.
And basically, the Phantom Zone, as it was when Atha was asleep, and when it woke up, all of the Kryptonians who were here all turned into these weird, more monstrous beings, and it's like, oh shit! So they have to fight their way through that. And who do they run into? Who's like, because we always have these stories in the Phantom Zone, and we get it in other stories with like post-apocalypses where there'll be the one character who's kind of not usually on their side, but turns out to be the one character who's there who can help them. Cyborg Superman, Hank Henshaw, shows up in his like his poncho or whatever he's wearing.
Old man Cyborg Superman.
Yeah, old man Cyborg Superman is like, hey, we've got one chance, and he leads them on a journey, and we see them fighting a bunch of stuff. What's kind of neat about this, I like the 2-page layout where it cuts back to the guy telling the story, because the layout of that I thought was quite neat. It flowed really well in this sort of semicircle kind of design. But he's saying, there's a device, because there's no Phantom Zone projectors, they were all destroyed intentionally, but there is one device that might still be usable that was here, someone had it here. And I kind of, I'm kind of annoyed at myself for not guessing it was going to be a mother box, and
Same.
We get a mother box being held by a Mr. Miracle, which Mr. Miracle is open for debate, but he's just a skeleton with the outfit on, basically. And it's like,
yeah,
okay,
I didn't guess. I'd have said it was Scott. It looks like his outfit.
Yeah, it does.
The closest to, and obviously, mother boxes aren't exclusive to him, but they're intrinsically tied to him more than any others.
Yeah, but the idea is that this godlike being was waking up and is targeting whoever's arrived in its brain, effectively.
Yeah.
And there's some fighting going on, but ultimately use the mother box. They all come flying out of the portal. Sorry, why am I saying portal? Boom tube. I should just call it what it is. Boom tube.
I think it's because they use the word portal.
Yeah. And of course they fight. Peros and big action scene very quickly, and they actually let Hank Henshaw go. Kara's ready to like bring him in, and Brendan's like, hey, he did actually. I mean, true, he was just using it as a means to an end. He would happily betray us, but we would probably all be in there or dead if it wasn't for him.
And the point raised that he was never intended, presumably, to be a punishment for this long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's kind of he's served his time almost. It's like you get another chance now.
So they let him fly off. Well, because one of the mechanic things as well is that once they're in the Phantom Zone, once they deplete whatever energy they have from the yellow sun, it's gone. They don't get to recharge in the Phantom Zone, so they have to. If anything, a critique would be that they should have maybe played with that more. The more they were in there.
I think it's again we spoke before. Johnson loves like fantasy books. He has that. He had that Black Label one.
Mm-hmm.
There's that point where it is that 2-page layout where it's like going through the various adventures, and it's just like a panel for each thing. I can see an entire miniseries of this issue, basically, of just those pages. Each of those adventures is an issue on its own. And them getting weaker and weaker as they go through the series. Like you could have played that if you'd wanted to.
Yeah. I don't know if I would have liked that as much. I think I kind of like that he just kind of waves
I get it.
And glosses over it and says, "Hey, they went on some adventures." Yeah. So they have the wedding. They kiss. That's the end of the issue, pretty much. Other than, of course, the bookend with the kid again and sort of question, "Hey, are you from the future? Because you seem to because that's the thing. They show that in this House of Krypton, House of L, whatever it is, in the future, this toy that this girl made is there in a case, and it's like this is from a time when Superman was at his lowest and someone believed in him, and which ticks all these Superman boxes for us. I think as Superman fans is the idea, the inspiration of Superman and the belief of Superman and all that. But he's like, is my toy really going to be in the future? And it's like, yeah, like if this guy was making up a story, which it didn't sound like he was, as she says, he sounds like he's telling something he knows about. But if he was making up a story, he would throw her thing in there. Like that would be like a little thing you'd put in for the kid.
It is.
So
and maybe it's a little column A, little column B. Like maybe it's real, but it's still a story for the kids as well at the same time. So just kind of embellishing a few details here or there.
It does feel like he's and that's the other thing that they mention that this kid, they're Philosian, right, or whatever the pronunciation was, which was set up in the last Action issue. This is like the people that are going to be saved on Warworld. So the idea
that's what Carnell is as well.
Yeah. So the idea that this is an entire race of people on Warworld that Superman's going to eventually save, but there's like some trials and tributes. So I love the idea that's what Action is going to be. Whilst we're going to have Superman with
It's
John.
why when in the Solicits they talk about this Warworld saga being the biggest story for Superman since Death and Return. Maybe they're not bullshitting us on that one because it does feel pretty epic.
It feels big, and it feels like this is Superman saving a subset of like Kryptonians who survived in some way. He's saving them, he's freeing his people. And there's already a lot of like religious analogies with Superman and Moses and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of things to go in there that's baked into Superman as a core idea, but at the core of it's also just a really cool, big, epic sci-fi story of him saving people and all the rest of it. So, it's all those things. So, yes, hard to fault.
This is a really great issue.
Hard to fault it too much. So yeah, what are you giving it?
No, I'll give it a 9. I love this issue.
It was I'll go 8.5. I think I'm just a tinge under where you are, but I'm definitely growing more fond of these characters that he's starting to build up. And next time maybe I'll remember at least their relationships to each other, if not their names. I
believe we have some Matt thoughts on this issue.
We do. Matt sent thoughts for 2 issues this week. I don't know if that's because that's all he's read or all he had time to write about, but he did send thoughts on Action. The other book he sent thoughts on was Rorschach, which is coming much later. So Action Annual, this is what he said. What I wanted from his House of Hell character family. Action Annual, what I wanted from his grammar here is a bit off, I'm not going to lie. He's missing a word or two. Basically saying this is what he wanted from his House of Hell character family. PKJ, is that the acronym?
Phillip K. Johnson, yeah.
Well, I know who it is, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
are we going to, like, is that what we call him now? PKJ, just 'cause for short.
Sure.
Does some great work building out the characters throughout the exposition, and while also making it feel like nothing is set in stone. The art is fine, but really comes around with Godlewski shows up. I don't know if I think I'm the other way around, actually. I think I prefer the other art, to be honest, but
I really like both. So I think the Phantom Zone stuff is inherently slightly less enjoyable to me because they're all, they're all in that bluey tint.
yeah.
Makes them feel very separate from the background, which is intentional. So the art is not failing, just it's not as pleasing on the eye as some of the other stuff.
Yeah. So, and then he says, I really love the dynamic between the family and how much Warworld mythos is coming out here. So, yeah. There you go. That is the Action Comics Annual 2021. Wonder Woman 775. Becky, Cloonan, and Conrad with Andy MacDonald. This is all you. I don't read this one. I get to rest my voice for a little bit.
Yeah, the vast majority of this issue takes place in the Graveyard of the Gods, which is kind of where we left them entering last time. This is Diana, Deadman, and Ratatosk. There's a little bit of her trying to get attention of the Keeper and trying to figure out who do we talk to, what are we doing here, what exactly is the deal. The idea is this is where gods who have died come. Obviously, this is but died in this sense is it can mean killed by other gods, but also just the idea of they were forgotten by people. They weren't worshipped anymore, so they had no reason to exist. So this is where they end up. And there's a creepy guy chiseling like names into headstones, who's got like his eyes sewn shut, and it's suitably creepy look, basically, and is telling them that, hey, you're expected here, Diana, with does that creepy pause? It's like, oh, he knows who she is. But they're like, yeah, go find the Keeper. You're expected. Go and have your chat. And she gets there. She's gets like a mausoleum. Ratatosk leads them to it, which it's got Hermes' staff on to kind of mark that. But then he shows up. The Keeper of the Gods. He's in like how do I describe it? It's like a bird head. Think like a plague doctor mask almost. It's kind of what it looks like, with a big hat, and he's got a staff with a lantern hanging on it. It's a cool design. And basically, Diana's like, right, you better set all the Olympians free. I'm gonna take you on. And he just laughs in her face, going, look, I am here in a graveyard of gods. I think I can take you. And she's like, well, what about Battle of the Wits? So it's a riddle game. So they challenge each other to some riddles, and as you'd expect, she wins. Some cool moments where he's again showing off his power, where Ratatosk starts to, it's like, oh, I know the answer to this one. So the Keeper grabs Ratatosk and is like choking him, is going to kill him. Deadman starts talking. He's like, no, you got no voice here, Deadman, and like waves his hand, and Deadman's mouth disappears. It's like it's just flesh over the bottom half of his face. It's a cool effect. I think there was something like that in Doctor Who at one point. Feels very Doctor Who-y. Can't remember when, but no, it was cool. Eventually, obviously, Diana wins the battle, but there's a price that has to be paid. Someone has to stay behind. They don't have the coin to pay the Keeper, which is the rules of the underworld. And if you don't have something to pay, you have to leave a life behind for the life you take out. And it's building up like it's going to be this big thing, like, oh, will it be Deadman? Will it be Ratatosk? And Diana, without hesitating, sacrifices one of the gods. She sacrifices Chaos, one of the eldest of the Greek gods, and is like, no, Chaos is a bit of a problem anyway, on Earth, so just they can stay here. And
Serious,
it feels like there's going to be repercussions for that.
serious question.
Yeah.
Is Ratikos the younger brother of Ratikin from Basil the Great Mouse Detective?
1, Ratatosk. 2, no, but it's not unfeasible they named a little rodent creature after a rodent god. Like genuinely not impossible that is an inspiration for the name.
Yeah. I just, it made me think of the best Disney animated film. I'm sorry, everyone. Please continue.
I don't know if I'm willing to say best Disney animated film, but I will give you most underrated.
Okay. I can live with that.
It's very good. But that's kind of like the end of the big plot of that stuff is, all the gods come back. They're back on Olympus. They're on a big party to celebrate getting out of it. But Diana's refusing to celebrate. She's like, no, there's work to be done. The other half of Janus is out there with the god slicer. I don't know. It had a stupid name that I don't. God Scraper. It's a sword that can kill gods, and apparently it was just stolen from Hephaestus's forge. Hermes accuses him of just leaving it lying around, and he's like, no, it was locked up. And Zeus is like, was it though? It's like, yeah, we'll deal with you later. But basically, Dionysus is like, well, look, I don't know where they are. Sorry, I think it's Hermes. Dionysus is there running the pie. Hermes is like, look, I don't know where they are, but there's a portal in the Satyr's Grove that, Janus, I've seen them hanging around there before. I sometimes send messages through that portal. It's worth a look. So the issue ends with her going to this portal, and the Satyr is like, no, no, don't throw me in the well, because she's beating him up a little bit. It's like, anyone who goes through there, no one ever returns. And it's this ominous thing, but of course she dives in, and it's the final page is she's going underwater. She's like swimming down and down, and she pops out upside down. Every the world's upside. It says welcome to Elfheim, so I'm assuming we're in another fantasy land, but it looks like a very like a tropical jungle. She's in like a pool at the bottom of a small series of waterfalls. It's a gorgeous page. Like, and it's all, like I say, all upside down. Her outfit's changed again. I'm really excited to see kind of what this place is, what the rules are for this one. Olympus was shorter lived than I expected, I would say overall. But no, another solid issue. It feels it's like another piece of the whole. Like we're in that point in the story where, okay, we kind of know we've got a few months till she's back in the real world, and there's just this kind of period now where we're kind of going through not the motions, but just kind of like, okay, where what exactly are the rules here? It feels like we're just going to explore a couple of things here or there as one larger story rather than anything special until we return. Now it's a little bit time killy, I guess, but it's still enjoyable enough to read. Like a solid 7.
Okay. I mean, I felt the first arc was time killy, which is why I abandoned it. But so
I think for me, the first arc felt distinct enough that it didn't feel time killy. I felt like it had a name, it had a bit of a mystery. Whereas now it's okay, we're hunting down a god and just doing a bit of world hopping while we do, kind of do a little bit of sightseeing. I expect it will still be fun enough, but I am looking forward to October now to kind of get back to real world, see what we do there. You got any thoughts, or you maybe pick it back up when it gets to that stuff and kind of try it back out in the real world?
In theory, I might. That said, though, there's a lot of new books coming out in October, so the concern, especially since oh no, it wasn't double shipping. It wasn't double shipping anymore. But so I mean, if it's out in a week where there's like 10 other books I'm reading, it might
especially as that issue is oversized.
It may not happen, and it is oversized. Yes.
Yeah.
As were most issues I read this week as well. Just to remind everyone. All right, that was Wonder Woman then. The Flash 2021 annual issue 1. That's the format we're going for these annuals now. Jeremy Adams writing with Fernando, Passarin, and Brandon Peterson on the art. So there's a lot going into this because I've been enjoying this arc. You get Wally jumping around into different speedsters' bodies at various points in time. And it ended with a cliffhanger last issue of him arriving in his own body, Heroes in Crisis. And it was like, okay, this story was always building to dealing with this in some way. And I've enjoyed the voice for Wally enough, and I've been relatively enjoying the book that I'm like, okay, let's get this done. Let's finish this story and, deal with it. And boy, oh boy, does it deal with it. And so the opening page actually mimics the Heroes in Crisis format, but it's the 9-panel grid with him talking. He's not in the therapy session though. He's talking to his family. But so he ends up in Heroes in Crisis, and he's looking up at all the people there who did die in his like energy blast explosion. And this book neatly as possible anyway, just retcons it. Retcons the shit out of it. Not so much that it saves people who died. The people who died still died. But it retcons that it was ever Wally's fault. You see, the energy explosion that happened from him that killed all these people was this. It was this thing that's going through the Speed Force that erupts when he arrives in his own body. It was never something he did on his own. It was this. Which turns out to be Savitar to blame. But it was this. So there's this moment where he looks up at them and he's like, it was never me. I never did this. So we get to look, is it the neatest thing ever? Is it the best storytelling ever? I don't care. We're done with it. Wally never killed these people. We can brush it aside. He doesn't have to feel that guilt anymore. It's done. And not only that, it does lead to some really nice moments here. Because basically they're all suspended in a time bubble because they're trying to contain the blast, right? So it's contained at Heroes in Crisis around just in the field where all these characters were fighting, or coming to get to Wally. And Roy's there, right? Roy's not in the bubble. Roy's outside the bubble. And so Wally gets to hug him and says, but you died. And he's like, talking about him right here. So we get this goodbye with Roy. And we also have Oliver, who's back with Barry, who are hearing this because they're talking to Wally. So we get this conflict where Oliver, several times in this issue, I don't care what we're doing, save my boy. Don't let my boy die. Like, he gets really emotional. If anything, he probably uses the phrase "my boy" maybe a couple too many times. But the first time he said it did make me sort of not smile, but like I was like, oh, that was touching. He, he's like, what to save his son. But what's good about this is that it gives Roy some agency in his death, because Roy actually makes the choice, because Wally's not willing to do it. Wally basically, he has to like vibrate his frequency, run back out of the Speed Force, and basically connect to the Speed Force the same way that Savitar has. Savitar's trying to like become naturally connected to it in a way that the Flashes aren't, and then Wally by the end of the issue does the same thing to sort of regain control of it and fix it. But that means that time will speed back up, this bubble will go away, and the people who are dying in this blast are all going to die, including Roy. And Roy makes the choice, understanding the consequences of what's going on, and understanding that he is dying, helping saving the universe. He makes the choice, and he actually fires an arrow that sort of like kicks it into gear. So he actually has agency in his death. He doesn't just die willy-nilly like he did before. He even says, can Oliver hear you? And he says goodbye. He says he was a good dad, and so on. And it makes it clear that, hey, people like us exist to ensure that there's still hope for tomorrow, which ultimately is kind of the sentiment that Wally has when he comes back, and he's like, no, I'm the Flash now. And he has his Flash outfit. He, because Savitar follows him and they fight a bit. Wally's kind of weak, but Barry gives him a ring, and it's got his Flash outfit, not his one with the open top from Rebirth. It's his, full-fledged Flash outfit that looks like Barry's, with some minor differences. The key difference here I noticed was actually that it doesn't have all the extra little yellow lines on it from New 52. It's just smooth red, which is good, by the way. I like it. I prefer it.
Yeah.
So, honestly, yes, it's a bit retconny, it's a bit convoluted to make all this work. but as an issue to deal with Heroes in Crisis, sweep it under the rug, make Roy's death not feel as, random and whatever. Give him a touching goodbye with Ollie. Give him his touching goodbye with Wally. Give that a bit more agency. Give Wally a genuine reason not to have to feel guilty about this, that it was never him. And it almost feels like this idea for this entire plot, the idea that Wally goes into these speedsters' bodies, and those speedsters are never aware that he was there for a period of time, was designed around the idea of it working with retconning this. Because it fills in completely and works. The idea that these other characters didn't know about it till later, because they're in the future, obviously, and the idea that Wally himself never realized he was taken over, because even in the Heroes in Crisis, he kind of effectively blacked out, right? Like, that was part of the whole thing, is that he was unaware of exactly what happened, and he comes to terms that he seemed to cause this at a certain point. It's all done. Happy retcon, everyone. We've gotten rid of it. We've dealt with it. And once again, it feels like the powers that be now at DC are fixing, even though there was a lot of things we liked in Rebirth. Rebirth was a lot of right steps. It definitely was. There's a reason why we started the podcast when Rebirth started. There's a lot of things to love about it. But there were still things here or there that mistakes were made. And even
it was
this,
never perfect.
Yeah. And even this, which was so recent as far as mistakes go, is already like, okay, this first arc was about setting up that Wally is the Flash in that outfit, and he no longer has to feel guilty about this. He has his wife, he has his kids, they're a family, and now we get to start a Wally West Flash run next issue.
About time.
It's hard to have a problem with this. Like, it is a bit comic booky, it is very retconny, but when you hate the thing it's retconning so much, it's
one of those things where it doesn't necessarily sound like a good issue. It doesn't necessarily sound like it's a good story. It's more just you're so happy about what the outcome is.
To an extent,
craft isn't as important.
I would argue the Wally and Roy stuff, and okay. Roy saying goodbye to Oliver as well, like that stuff, and then like them having to accept that they have to let this explosion happen to save basically the Omniverse. Like, the Omniverse is going to die if we don't fix this.
Roy's back now anyway, so it's fine.
Yeah, and they don't know that yet, of course, but this is where I was saying where this ties really nicely into everything going on, because giving Roy this big moment, like, kind of like further contextualizes his comeback now, in a lot of ways.
It's weird where I feel like it would have been more interesting had he not been back already.
Yeah, I think that's just like, well, they're telling the rest of the stories, and this had to be here. Yeah. 6-7 issues and whatever it is, and it's fine. But it kind of feels like, oh, Roy feels important again, and giving him this moment here where his death actually isn't just off panel, doesn't just feel like a shock cheap thing. It actually like re-solidifies this idea that they're treating Roy with some respect, that he's been put in a prominent position in a big story, and this is a nice little way to like make that death work. So this is, fairly schlocky, timey-wimey, Speed Force Bro comic book storytelling, but it's doing it for all the right reasons. So, and I didn't have a bad time, because there are giant little character beats in here that are good. I enjoyed a lot of this arc, here or there. And it's kind of in the same place as Green Lantern is for me, where it's definitely some rough around the edgy stuff in terms of it's not the prestige book that some other books are, but it's solidly just being a Flash comic. And at least I hope it feels like that now that we're past this arc.
Find out soon.
Right, I'll find out soon. The next issue won't be long. So, and there's some nice art in here, actually. I think, Passarin and Peterson. I think Peterson in particular is the art that I'm really liking. There's a full page spread of when Roy fires the arrow up to like pop the bubble effectively to get everything going. That's a really nice looking panel, or the page even. So really nice. Also, there's a moment where after they hug, Roy says to him, "Us gingers have to stick together." So I thought you'd appreciate it.
No, it feels like pandering. Don't appreciate it. It depends. Is the writer a ginger? Because otherwise, it's really pandering if he's not.
I don't know. He's Jeremy Adams. Maybe he's ginger. Maybe he's not. I have no idea.
Yeah, I've got no clue.
I have no idea what he looks like. So it's fun stuff. Yeah, Superman and Batman are there at the end as well because they call it when they realize that whatever Wally's fighting is going to come out the Speed Force with them. They call in some Justice League members to help with the fight. Yeah, and the fight's all right. I mean, it's basically building up to Wally putting on the suit, which he does, and it's neat. And yeah, but it looks good.
Cool.
Yeah, so, yeah. There it is. There's some speeding about. The city, yeah, I kind of glossed over the fight itself because ultimately it's not the important part. But it's Wally's making the choice. He's the Flash now, and there's a sweet moment at the end where because Oliver at the start of this run was kind of addicted to Wally and kind of blamed him for Roy's death. That was set up at the start of the run. So there's a moment here at the end where Oliver just says "kid," and there's a great panel of him just looking kind of sad, like he's he clearly regrets how he's treated them and. He hugs him, and there's nothing else said between them. It's just like, Wally lost one of his best friends, Oliver lost a son, and this was something Roy clearly made the choice as a hero to do, as opposed to what it seemed like before. Yeah, and it just ends with a full page spread of Wally running in his proper Flash outfit. That smooth red, I love it. And he just says, "My name is Wally West, and I am the Flash." And it says next heat wave, so we're getting a heat wave story next, which just feels like a fun romp. Yeah, give Wally some Flash villains to fight.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Sure, why not?
I'm into it. So, I jokingly want to give this a 10 for retcon Heroes in Crisis, but I'm not going to do that. I will say art is obviously there's two artists, so it's not equal throughout, so that's a little bit of a problem. But there are some really nice pages. I like what it retcons. I like some of the emotional beats between the characters. It's not the greatest thing ever. It is definitely a little messy in how it has to accomplish all these things. But I think all things considered, I'm willing to stretch this out to the 8 and just go that extra little bit and say, you know what? I had feelings while I read this. Happy feelings, both in an emotional and universe context, but also in a meta context. So finally, we don't have to deal with this anymore because it's done. This is the thing. I expected this arc by the end to deal with the idea of him constantly having to be depressed about Heroes in Crisis, but they made it impossible now because it wasn't his fault. It wasn't him. He never has to consider that again. He can reference it for other reasons, possibly but it doesn't matter now. It's not going to be something where he has to feel punished and broody because he killed people. So I'll give the 8. Flash Annual 2021. There you go. I was talking for a long time there. Batman, the Detective, issue 4. Is this
indeed?
Is this a 5? Is this only 5ish? No, 6. Still 6. Okay. So this is Bruce has been arrested under the suspicion that he killed Henry Descartes. If anything, my only complaint about this little story beat is that it takes Bruce probably too long to realize that these aren't actually agents from Interpol, and that they're actually members of the villains, and that he's been tricked. I thought, wait, how did they bring you here? What was the process? Because it feels a little bit shady.
I like it. I think the implication is he was brought here by Interpol, because they mentioned that there's when he breaks out.
So you're saying there
are actual officers there.
So this is to show how integrated and how much power they have and how
they've infiltrated Interpol.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
I think that he is there, and I think the reason that he doesn't pick up on anything is because he's so caught up in his own thing. The whole thing is him talking about how, well, the easiest way to find a lot of this information is for them to just give it me. They've already done a lot of the legwork. I can just kind of pretend to answer a few questions and get the right answers from them. So he's so caught up in his investigation of getting the information that he's not focused on anything else. It's a little bit of hubris, I guess.
Yeah. So they show him crime scene photos of all these people that these villains have killed all over the UK. He recognizes probably my favorite page of this section is that when they ask if he recognizes them, there's a page of him remembering Like, yeah, he does. He says to us that he remembers them. He remembers everyone he saved, but then he says no to them. I like that beat.
Just before we do cause a slight international incident, Ireland is not in the UK. We know one of these is in Dublin.
I'll be honest, I didn't remember that one was in Dublin. I just remembered both Scotland and England, but
I think it's Scotland and Wales actually.
Yeah, it's Wales. Do you know what I think it is? I think it is. I remembered it as Scotland, England, and Wales, not Scotland, Wales, and Ireland.
Yeah, and it's specifically Dublin as well, so you can't even be like, Northern Ireland. It's like, no. And I know you know that, but just we do not want to cause an international incident.
Look, Ireland always gets included with the UK. It's a package deal, even if there's no actual governmental connection. Okay.
Yep.
Oh dear. Yes. Okay. Where was I? Yes. Okay. So, yeah, basically he starts to feel weak and stuff because there was something in the water they gave him. They stab him in the shoulder because they don't know he's Batman. They're killing him as someone Batman has saved.
Well, they think he might be Batman. They're like, oh, it's possible.
They considered it, yeah.
And then they're like, nah, this was too easy. This can't possibly be Batman.
Which is almost just rubbing salt into the wounds, salt into the wounds. But if anything, my biggest complaint with this issue, which I think is fairly fine, it's been kind of on par with what this book has been, which is Taylor's weakest work, which is still solid, but not up to his usual standard. Is that it did feel very because Batman when he's like, oh, the poison's in me, I'll just have to fight it and I can still break these chains and stuff. I was
slow my heart rate enough that the poison doesn't spread, but have enough adrenaline going that I can break these chains.
That felt very because Batman-y to me.
It does, yeah.
So I'll say it for Matt since he's not here. And then the fact that he's able to sneak out and stuff while he's dying of poison, is kind of whatever.
Cyanide poisoning, I believe he says, right?
Yeah, he says that later. He says that when he goes to the pharmacy to grab some medication.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you could fight cyanide poisoning with stuff that you can buy in a pharmacy, to be honest. But I'll take the writer's word for it.
I actually believe it is possible. I'm sure it is.
It probably
the
is.
Amount of shit that you can get in a pharmacy.
It never occurred to me that there was literally stuff you could just go to a pharmacy and get. I mean, presumably most people can't walk and need to go to a hospital and they'll deal with it, but
yeah, but the idea of those, in theory, the correct combination of drugs being available in a pharmacy is plausible.
When he passes out and maybe possibly dying, and he sees he says, I dream of old friends, I dream of people I love, I dream of the fallen, blah blah blah. And obviously the Alfred's there, the Waynes are there, some Trinity members, and his past loves. I thought, you know what? I hate that the rest of the Bat family is kind of excluded here. Where's Dick and Babs and so on and so on. Like that shit.
He's thinking about Jason.
That shit. Jason got a spot here, right? I'm just Anyway, Squire was there to help him when he got out, and she's there when he wakes up. And she informs him that a bunch of people got killed in Belgium. They basically they shot a bunch of people at a dinner party, and then they also set fire to a building and sealed it. So he's like, okay, we need to go. We need to deal with this, and all the rest of it. He basically calls in a secret code, for someone who Alfred was keeping in touch with to bring him a mobile bat cave, which is imagine one of those big sort of truck bus things that have got a I guess the realist example you can compare it to is a TV truck that has all the TV equipment in it, and that's where they do the control room stuff. They're in the truck.
It's plausible enough that it's one of those.
Yes.
Slapped with a bunch of armor plating on it.
Yeah, the front of it looks like a goddamn train. It looks like a big super train.
It's got a big snowplow on the front for some reason.
Yeah. Depending on where he is in Europe, is he expecting a lot of snow? I don't know.
He's in France, isn't he?
Does France get a lot of snow?
Reasonable amount, normal amount, I think.
Is it? Oh.
I mean, not the south of France. South of France is pretty nice and toasty, I believe. But
I think of France as a sunnier place, but I guess that's maybe more the more.
I think it gets sunnier, but I think it has its fair share of snow as well in the winter.
I guess that's more the touristy areas I'm thinking of though.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. I did like the fact that Alfred left a little toy T-Rex and a coin
Yes.
in this mobile back
Little
here.
pieces of home.
Yeah. And Batman's little smirk. So Batman calls Oracle. Squire freaks out when the big hologram head.
I do like when he just starts talking like, take us out to the highway. It's why that I don't think the dinosaur can drive.
Yeah. Yeah, those fun little beats are all fine. And then he's like, Oracle, put in the call. I want all of the European Alliance of the Bat. I guess
It's a mouthful.
Yes, it's a big mouthful. So they're calling in all these European Bat friendlies, which I'm sure a lot of them are characters that did exist before that people who remember them will know. But I feel
I'm sure half of them will have been in like Morrison's stuff, right?
But I don't expect to remember. Yeah, this is the notable thing about this book is this is the only book I read this week that was only 20 pages, so it was a quick read compared to everything else. But
I thought there was 2 books that you read that were 20 pages.
Oh no, because I never read Urban Legends. Or no, Urban Legends. Sorry, Future State Gotham. That would have been the second one.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
But because I didn't read it, it was just the one.
Yeah, fair point.
So that's okay. I don't have a whole lot to say beyond what we have already.
It's a solid fun romp at this point. I don't think it's changing anyone's mind if you like it or dislike it.
No. It's such an easy breezy read that it's kind of comfortable and safe, but if it wasn't Taylor's like chemistry and the characters, it probably would be like maybe in danger of being dropped just because weeks are getting busier. But
it's the sort of thing that I'm kind of sticking with at this point because there's only 2 issues left.
Mm-hmm.
Let me put it this way: if this was still running into October, I probably wouldn't be reading it in October.
So, what are you giving it? Batman the Detective issue 4.
It's like a 7.
Yeah, it's 7. I'll agree with that. Batman Urban Legends issue 5, the anthology book, which has 4 stories in it, which after how long this podcast has already been is making me upset. So
I'm getting tired, I'm not gonna lie.
I'm very hungry at this point, so if we breeze through these a little bit quicker than normal, because I'm not rushing through Rorschach. Rorschach's too good for that.
Oh god damn it! I've got to listen to you chat on about
that. So yeah, Red Hood story. Mr. Giggles, if I remember his name right. Obviously they capture Batman. Mr. Freeze showed up at the end. Mr. Freeze is working for him not because of his free will though, but because he's been basically dosed with the.
It's Mr. Cheer, isn't it? Because it's a cheer drop.
Cheer drop. There you go. Yes, but he's been given the cheer drop. So Freeze is actually kind of crazy. There's some good art here at the start. There's some more flashbacks. Basically, the first time Jason ever had to sort of do something on his own, he had to save Batman from Riddler. He had to solve a riddle. Has a different art, of course, which is fine. Flashback, it makes sense. So Jason has to do a little bit of investigating and tracks the most likely suspect who could be this Cheer character. Through his wife, who actually helped develop the Scarecrow gas and did come up before. I actually really like the Freeze scenes where he's talking to Batman and he's acting kind of crazy because he's talking to Nora. It was like, oh, this is kind of
very
fun.
Unhinged.
Yeah, it's fun because it's a very different type of Freeze, but it's not because he's acting out a character. I mean, he is, but it's because he's under the influence of something. So it was a fun vibe.
Out of character, but in context.
Yes. So Cheer kind of comes in and says, "Oh, Batman, stop trying to trick him. How dare you?" kind of thing. But he does it with a smile on his face, and he's very sinisterly. He's got that clown quality to him in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Mime from.
A little bit. I could see that. On the big smiley face that's dripping on his jacket, looks actually more like a pumpkin than anything else. But that's whatever.
God damn it! You've just ruined it for me. I hadn't seen that, and now I can't unsee it. If you just color correct that to be orange,
it looks like a pumpkin.
It really does. Joe, it looks like Joe as well. Like it's not, as well as just a pumpkin. Especially it's in the page after the one after he says, oh, Batman's just trying to trick you.
Yes.
There's a side view of him looking up at Batman. Batman's all in silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
He looks like the main kind of ghost one from Nightmare Before Christmas. The way the yellow there is dripping from that side view, it looks exactly. I don't know the names of them from Nightmare Before Christmas, but the main one.
I could see it. So Jason breaks into the company where both him and his wife worked. He's been kind of not showing up recently, and it's kind of, you can kind of see it's because he's been out doing his cheer thing. And he became kind of obsessed because his wife was good at her job and he couldn't crack the thing he was working on. So Jason goes kind of, gently interrogates, someone who works here, maybe the boss. And he looks up the kind of the numbers of like who's been like shipping these like ingredients and the chemicals that are used to make this stuff. And he kind of tracks down to where this cheer guy is. But the cliffhanger of the issue, because Jason, so he will be coming next issue, but the cliffhanger is that Cheer puts on a gas mask on Batman and pumps him full of Cheer Drop. So we're going to get Cheer Drop Batman probably versus Jason next issue, I would imagine.
Well, given that I think next issue is the end of this story.
Yes.
I would hope so.
Yes. So that's a nice big thing for Jason to have to fight. So, solid. I liked all the Mr. Freeze stuff. I think Cheer, despite the pumpkin thing, I actually think he's got a good vibe as a villain, and the way that he was talking to Freeze, I think, was kind of menacing, and so
it's fun.
Yeah, I've had fun with this story still. I think maybe I have the emotional touch that the stuff with Jason and the kid had back in the first two issues, but I'd still happily give this like a 7.5.
I think I'm going to be a 7, but I think part of that is the first couple of issues of this kind of set the bar.
Yeah.
And now this is like, it's still good, but it's not. If it had started like this, I wouldn't have been as invested.
Sure. And then we have a Batgirl story, where Steph and Cass have broken into Wayne Manor, which technically Bruce doesn't own right now, and they're playing video games. I think this is a Margaret Bennett story with Sweeney Boo, on art, and I think the critique I have right away is that it felt like Cass's voice was a little too quippy to me.
Yeah, she felt off to me in a couple of places, and not just quippy either. There was a few things that just felt a bit wrong.
Like, I think Steph seems mostly fine. The bubbliness kind of works with her character. It's just kind of who she is. It felt like Cass, and I'm not saying that you have to keep her, not being able to talk properly forever, but like, I think there's a way she speaks when it's done well, where it sounds like someone who's more matter of fact.
I think the one that annoyed me as well was like the misunderstanding. Like I think there's a bit where Steph's saying, "Oh yeah, we're just house sitting until until Bruce gets the mansion back," and it explicitly uses the word house sitting.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cass says, house squatting good for glutes. I'm like, yeah, that feels like a strange just twisting of it in that. I don't think Cass is really at that.
Yeah, and I'm not like super into the art that much either. I think there's times when it works. I think it works mostly on Steph, bizarrely, but I think like the panels showing like Batgirl when she was investigating this red card like menace, back in the day. Like, I'm not super into the art style for the most part. I think it's a little bit better when they've got their masks on though. Like, see when Cass has got her full mask on and Steph's got her face mask and her hood up. But I think then, and it gets a bit darker, I was into it a little bit more art wise. Obviously, yeah. I love the idea of the Batgirls doing stuff. So far though, I've not been in love with the little mini stories they've been given, but I think it's just down to writing. It's just down to the concepts that they're actually using.
Yeah, maybe the Batman backup will be the one.
Yeah, this one ends in a bit of a cliffhanger to imply that this girl they do run into is more of like a sort of rebel with a good cause kind of character, and it kind of teases that there's something bigger to,
Yeah, she gets away, so there'll be more.
Yeah. So I
think there's one more part of this still.
Yeah, well, it says end at the end of it, but yeah, it does feel like it's got another part.
Yeah, but I think in terms of like where it is, I think there's one more in the issues. I could be wrong though.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'd probably give it like a 5 just because I felt like cast was a bit off. Art wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily working for me. It's just not my style.
I probably agree with that. It's okay.
Yeah, it exists. And probably just a notch above that, but not necessarily, thrilling me either. There's the Tim Drake story in here.
Oh, I quite like this.
Like, I mean, I don't dislike it. Like, it's basically Tim is infiltrating this pain cult, this cult that deals with pain. Because it seems like his old friend might have got involved with this before, and these villains are targeting people involved. More interesting stuff for me in this story was the idea that it's still in continuity and detectives aren't meant to be working with the back characters, but this detective who's investigating the case intentionally leaves a bunch of stuff in his car for Tim to find.
Just happens to leave them where he might go looking.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, and there's a couple of okay pages. There's a page where Tim's just standing at the corner of a rooftop, and it's kind of a nice page artistically. Nice use of shadows and whatnot. But yeah, so basically he was told to go way up on the rooftop, and it turned out there's not just one chaos monster. They're all different. They're all different members of this cult. So yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
I think I'm enjoying this more than I expected to, based off this being the writer of the Future State Tim stuff, which I despised. Sure. I'm quite into this, surprisingly.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, for me, it's like amazing. It's like a solid 7.
Yeah, but I'll probably like a 6-ish on this. I would say. Yeah, we did dart through those a little bit quick, but they're quite short, and also this is a long episode, so final story is the last part of the Grifter story, which is Grifter being kicked out of the Wayne building, having to get his way back in. He makes a deal with it's Leviathan, right? Who hired him originally to kill Lucius. He sort of. That's the thing, you don't really know what side he's playing at. There's a certain point in this issue where I'm like, I really don't know if he's still intending to like do shady shit for Leviathan, or if he's completely on Lucius's side. Obviously, it turns out it's more of a third option where he's not being a villain, but he's also
doing his own shit.
He's playing Leviathan, but he's whatever. So he has some banter with Batman when he's getting back inside the building. He ends up going to save Lucius. There's some action sequences. Runs into Nightwing as well as Batman, and the action's fine. The action's solid. The banter's there. The person in the comms referring to Nightwing having a nice ass. Nightwing has that night ass.
Damn right does.
And but let's be honest here. This is all about him. Like he always wanted to steal all of the stuff from the back computer that's in this building. And when it turns out who he's doing this for, he calls in his cavalry and he's like, Wildcats, let's tell them or remind them who we are. And it's his entire Wildcats team.
Wildcats assemble, basically.
Yeah, and I have to admit, I've been enjoying this story, but because I don't give a shit about Wildcats and I have no attachment to it, and I've never really read Wildcats.
I barely name half of these characters.
I thought I could name any of them. All the ones they specifically point out.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. It was kind of like, okay, you're setting up for more Wildcat stuff. I appreciate the attempt. I appreciate that for people who care about Wildcats, this probably means something. For me, because Grifter was a thing where I didn't care about Grifter, but they did enough in the writing of the stories, both in this and the Future State stuff, that I was like, okay, I'm starting to kind of like the shittiness of this character and his kind of like stumbling through life kind of attitude. It made me kind of enjoy the story of that character. But because it like treats all these characters, all these characters are back. I'm like, well, I don't care about Eddie's though. So
yeah, it kind of left me feeling really cold. The end of this 5-part story has no conclusion of its own except to be like, hey, Wildcats.
And it says they'll return. That's the text at the end.
As someone who does not give a shit about Wildcats, that's not a satisfying ending to this story for me.
No. It's a weird thing because if you're reading this Grifter story because you do like Wildcats, this was probably like this probably popped you at the end. You're like, oh, and you're like excited for what's to come. As someone who only get into this because I like the writer and they made Grifter a likable kind of flumbling hero. It was a bit of a cold ending in that sense. Like, am I even going to read, even if it's Williams or Rosenberg, sorry, who's doing the Wildcats story whenever it pops up? Am I going to give a shit and try it? I don't know. Now that there's more books, I don't know if I'd be willing to give it a serious chance.
Yeah, if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, maybe. Now, when it'll be after half of those books have all launched, well, I mean, it'll be after all of those books in October. If I'm keeping even half of those books, the odds of me caring enough to read a Wildcats book are pretty slim.
It's still a well done, issue of the story in the sense that, the action's really solid, the banter's still there, there's still moments to make you laugh.
I really like the bit where he's got the device for the door with Batman. That whole section was funny and yeah, really well played.
Yeah, so,
But also, it has no ending for someone who doesn't care about Wildcats.
Yeah, what you rating it?
I feel like I have to give it a 6, which feels harsh, but it's the conclusion to a 5-part story that I didn't care about at the end. So,
Yeah, I don't know. So it's a tough one to rate because I did feel kind of cold on the ending. And it's not that it's a bad ending per se. It's just that I just don't care about what they did, what it built.
I think it's a bad ending for this story, like for this grifter story.
They were teasing who he was talking to the whole time, so it is kind of a payoff to that in a way. But
I think you can pay off that and still have an ending that's satisfying for this story, though.
Yeah, because we don't really know why they want this. We don't, like this issue is especially really played with the what side is he really on? Is he really secretly still going to crawl back to Leviathan? But I didn't really expect that, but they really kind of played it like where he was flipping back and forth. So to not have I guess it's definitive in that he's working with Wildcats, but it'd have been nice to know exactly why I don't know, like why he got so close to, because he's been so tied to Lucius between the Future State and then this story. It felt weird not to have more of a concrete kind of like feeling of that by the end, but oh well. So I'll give it. I'll say 6.5. Just because it's still a well constructed issue. It's still got fun action. It's still all the elements that I liked before are still there. It's just, Oh, we should also mention he didn't kill Nora Freeze or whoever else he said he killed. The bodies were fakes.
They were like super clones.
Yes. This was just to make people think he'd done it so that they would respect him as a villain or something.
Yeah, and when Batman's like, I don't know how you did it, it's just like, it doesn't matter. Don't think about it.
Yes. So, there you go. Rorschach, issue 10. It's a shame Matt's not here. He did send me a quick thought on the issue, which I'll get to. But so last issue, so this is Tom King, of course, with Jorge Fornes. Last issue did have the thing where the body that was buried at the house that he was looking at had a beeper, and the number that it went back to was part of the Redford campaign. And that was, oh shit, is Redford involved? And he isn't really. This issue kind of like makes it clear, even though it's still a smoking gun to the political party they're opposing, Turley's people are still going to use this and still going to paint Redford, the president, as a villain behind all this, even though he doesn't seem like he actually had any personal touch on it. It's a very, there's a lot to explain here, so I'm going to do the whole thing. But it was basically Frank Miller in story gave. And my cat's getting comfortable on my lap, so I guess I'm just dealing with that now. Basically, the old man, under the guise that he was writing a story about his pirate cat, Pontius Pirate, coming to a present-day scenario and didn't like all of the way things had changed and there was all these rules and laws, he would try to assassinate a presidential candidate. And so under the guise that it was research for a story, he wanted to talk to people who could give him insight and experience into the sort of situation that would arise, what's all the things that he would have to do to be able to pull it off, what would be the best place to target such a person, so on and so on. And he got a bunch of names that was recommended to him, and he goes around checking these people, and they all kind of pop up one way or another, except one, the last person, Jonathan Oates, isn't at his place of residence. And it's very clear that he's the body that was found with the pager. And it turns out that he did some private security work for President Redford in his last two like campaigns, but he wasn't actually Secret Service. And there's a reason in here about like he didn't want to use taxpayer money, so he actually just paid himself for private security instead of using extra Secret Service or something like that. It was whatever. But this issue is told in the context of our investigator telling his liaison at the Turley campaign, the campaign manager, whoever this guy is. I've forgotten his exact role. But they're sitting having drinks, and he's explaining everything he's found, and that's the framing device of the issue. And he talks about finding, a gun, money. There's notably a bottle of beer in this safe that he finds in this guy's house, which stuck out because he didn't mention it. And it's like, why did the guy keep this on him? Like, what did he keep on? Why is it there? And he picks it up with a cloth, and it comes back at the ending, right? Because it's this kind of a slick little thing that goes on here. But it mentions here that this guy Oates, he was on the squad that helped capture Bin Laden, because different universe. Keep that in mind. And he got into security, did all these things, but then there's this other element, which is that he had a secretary who worked for him who committed suicide recently. And it's like, why did she commit suicide? And he keeps telling this story. There's a lot. I'm skimming some of these details a little bit because this is really well written and just how complicated the details are, but it all flows really well when you're reading it. Like, it all keeps just sort of unraveling as you're going, and kind of keeps going. And the idea was that she was aware of these conversations that Oates was having with Meyerson, and giving him all these hints and tips. And she was like, this is fishy, this is not right. This guy Oates was a fan of the comic book of the pirate character, which is why he was so willing to help this guy. And basically went through, you need these badges, and if you act confident enough, they won't even search you because they're too busy dealing with all the crowds, and so on and so on. And you'd be best going up to this catwalk. And part of what made him feel like it was good fiction was because this catwalk at this center that is going to be the place of the assassination, like it was actually built for snipers for protection, but it was so high up and the angle was so bad that snipers never used it. They found other places in the building to use, so it's this perfect thing. But the idea being that this is why it's fiction, because no one could ever make this shot. It's unrealistic that anyone can make this shot, but the whole story's been building the idea that the kid is this shot, that she can make this shot because she's that good. But anyway, so she's uncomfortable. She thinks this is actually something serious, that he's helping someone who's actually going to try and do something. And when Meyerson asks for VIP passes so you can go in and do some research, quote unquote, he drives them out himself to that farmhouse, and this is where the interaction happens, where he dies, which is actually still a mystery. That's something that the investigator at the end says. He still doesn't know why they killed him. And it's a really good moment, actually, because you sort of see some of it play out where Meyerson and the kid hug, and it's this really good moment of embrace because the kid does get shot in the arm by this guy, and we can speculate that maybe he sort of realized when he was there that they were going to actually try something, and there was a bit of a confrontation, which makes it very clear, by the way, that this did not come from Redford himself. The reason why the Redford is even involved is because this guy, who's not directly associated with them but has worked with them, called in a favor to Redford's campaign office to get badges, because even though he's the opposition, Redford's the president, so if his office asks for some passes for a rally for the competition, if they ask the Turley's people for that, they'll hand them over, because it's the president effectively asking for some badges to have some people at the thing. Why wouldn't they hand them over? In fact, I actually really like the guy's reaction, because this guy who's the campaign manager or whatever kind of goes, oh shit, I would have approved that. That would have been literally went through my office when they asked. Why wouldn't we say yes? So that's kind of how it goes through the Redford office. That's where there's a connection. That's why he's got this number on his beeper and so on and so on. But the secretary at the thing called in the scare and said he accepted this call where someone said someone's going to try and kill Turley, and he kind of laughed it off. And he's like, oh my god, I sort of shrugged this off. And because she was the only surviving person out of the whole thing, she felt she would be blamed, and she'd implicated herself, and that's why she killed herself. So all this is great, and also that full page panel where they hug and the flashback to when they kill this guy, the blood on the floor makes kind of a Rorschach looking symbol. Neat little touch. All really good. Art's fantastic throughout, as it has been. There's so much to explain here. The ending of this issue, though, and I did notice that they're sitting having this drink. The bottles of beer they have are very similar to the one that was in the safe, and it was never mentioned that the investigator never mentioned that. He mentioned that there was money in the safe. He mentioned there was a gun in the safe. He never mentioned the bottle of beer. And this guy says, you know what, you've done above and beyond. You should see Turley personally and explain all this to him. You've connected this to Red, for this is like such a smoking gun. Here, I'll pay for the drinks. And he's like, hey, I'll call you soon. Thank you. And the final page is a silent page, 9-panel grid, as King loves. The investigator pulls out a napkin. He picks up the other guy's bottle. He looks at it. And the final panel is just a panel emphasizing this guy's fingerprint on the bottle. And it just reveals that he is looking for something, that he suspects that this guy is involved, that this is something that's actually going through their own office, and that he's looking for this evidence here. He's still investigating, as much as this was framed as him reporting back to the guy who hired him. At least that's what I can take from this ending. It may obviously swerve a bit more than that. It may be a bit more intricate than that, a bit more complicated. But this, because it was so heavy on the explanations, there was so much dialogue, there was so much explaining all these details of this convoluted case that built up to the ending. This final page being completely silent and being this reveal that he's still looking and he's still suspecting something else, and there's more elements to this, just was the perfect kind of like, oh shit moment at the end. Get into these final 2 issues. Really well done. Given how many details there are to all of this case and this guy's this Oates involvement, and how he got these passes, how he gave him all these advice and experience, it flows so well. All these things considered, the art's phenomenal, as it has been. The way it uses color is so good. Like the bathroom where the girl commits suicide, the secretary, feels different from everything else. There's a sequence of panels where when he's explaining what you would do to kill, fictionally, someone in this place. There's a great panel where it's just black and white with the red splatter. The guy's in silhouette as he gets hit, and it's just the glasses go flying and there's red splatter. Really good stuff. It has this feeling to it the entire time. And when you go back and look through the panels before, you can see it really emphasizing the campaign manager pouring his drink, having his hand on the glass. It focuses on these details. And it does this, not right after he's found the bottle. It's a few pages later. There's other stuff in between. More stuff that he's telling the story of. Really solid storytelling. It's planting these seeds throughout that makes that ending just feel so much kind of worth it. And that's the thing, that this guy Oates kept so many records. It mentions this, that he kept so many records physically, that it's weird there's nothing about this attempted thing with Turley. There's no plans to help people kill someone, because it wasn't a job. It was just him helping Myerson as a researcher, effectively. But why did they kill him? Excellent questions. This was a riveting issue to read, because it just kept adding more of these details. It felt like it was all kind of coming together, and then ultimately you have this ending that just quietly makes sure. It's almost like it over explains everything exposition wise throughout the issue, and it is interesting everything it's saying, just so that it can silently make one final point at the end that just feels like, no, he was playing us like he was playing this character. He was just, this was all about just getting him to sit there and trust them and leave some evidence. And really, really good stuff. Loving this book still. It's going into its end game. I'll read what Matt said about it before I give my rating here. Where are we? Rorschach is starting to come together. This is Matt, for the record. Art was pretty damn great. with all the small particulars of the storytelling. Yep, that's pretty much what I was getting at there. It feels like something is off, and I'm not sure what to make of the end. I still feel like Turley's people are involved, and it's not as clear cut as it seems. Yeah, it definitely feels like there's stuff going on here. This issue did sort of drift away from this idea of the teasing that this main character might become a new Rorschach of some kind, to an extent. But I don't know if it's just because I'm barking down the wrong tree, or if it's because it's just it's not the focus of this issue. This is about something else. This is a 9. This is just a straight up 9. It's a goddamn great issue, and just feel like this is going to be an epic 12 issue read when you have that hardcover and you can just read all 12 issues of it in one big run. There's so many details throughout, though. It may actually be quite daunting. Like, I feel like talking about these issues as they come out have really benefited this in the same way that talking about a good TV show really benefits all the build of all the details, because it is so detail rich. King put a lot of thought into this, and the art's got the thought as well, because it's just the way it focuses on things, the way it's pacing things out. Anyway, 9 out of 10. There you go. So that's the last of the new issues this week. Connor is going to do a Patreon book first every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can support us, of course, for as little as $1 per month. But one of the higher tiers, you can make myself and Connor read a book. So we've got one each here. Connor's going to talk about Noctera issue 4.
I want to say I'm really glad I decided not to do 2. Which it was something I considered, but then I actually fell asleep for an hour before we started recording, which was the reason why I didn't. I'm glad now. But yeah, this is Scott Snyder writing, Tony Daniel on art, which is how it's been every issue, but just in case you forgot.
Mm-hmm.
It's another great issue. Just throw that at the start. It starts off with the same format as most of the issues have, with a little bit of a flashback to when they were kids, continuing on the story of kind of what happened when the world went dark, kind of, in those early days. Last issue was about them locking their parents in the bedroom. This issue is them kind of went around. The news is kind of saying, if you can't make it to one of these shelters, because they've realized that you need to stay in light. So if you can't make it to one of these shelters, the military are coming around street by street. Everyone will be fine. And then, like 2 days later, they realize no one's coming. They kind of have to go. So they grab their dad's gun from the cabinet, and off they head out. And that's actually kind of all we get really of the opening stuff, the flashback stuff. Some of the issues have had it kind of wrap around. This one has a bigger cliffhanger that it wanted to focus on, so no wraparound this time. But we do cut ahead to the present day. The brother, whose name I'm completely forgetting, the brother. He's kind of turning, as we saw last issue. He's kind of at the point where the news reporters deemed them were too far gone, was what we learned last issue. But of course, Val's not giving up hope. She's looking for this solar lamp that they're claiming is in this little town called Tipton, which is another like sanctuary town. I'm really enjoying how all the towns have like a theme. Like there was the one a couple of issues ago that was a light bulb factory, so that's why it survived. So it has it had all these light bulbs like all over the town because that was kind of their thing. This one is a luggage factory, not a luggage factory, a luggage town. Basically, when airlines had like unclaimed luggage, this is where they sent them to get sorted, and it kind of became like the town identity. So there's a big, massive suitcase on top of a hotel, sort of thing. So there's just lots of stuff for scavengers, basically, in this place because there's all the weird stuff was sent here. But they realize that this place has been recently hit by human shades, so it's kind of a ghost town. Everything's dangerous. There's a couple of like half human things. They call them smudges. So there's a couple of them still around that they have to fight, but for the most part, they're looking for this solar lamp, and unbelievably enough, they do find one. And it's seemingly working. They're using it on M. That's the brother. They're using it on him, and it's not entirely curing him, but it's reversing the effects enough that he can talk to them normally, which he couldn't before. Before he was basically just a zombie, kind of attacking them. But this is significantly slowing it down. But now we're finally back to right. Get in the truck, drive to where they were going. You know, where they were going to meet the old guy's brother, I think. The mystical place where there is sunshine. And you know, get a little bit of a chase. You know, Bill's still chasing them. He's got that old guy, you know, strapped to the roof of his car, turning slowly into a shade, just bit by bit. It's pretty horrific looking. But as they're getting there, the battery in their truck dies, and they're like, "Oh, there's still a few hundred meters. We're gonna have to get out and walk." And just, you know, they leave the headlights on blasting and kind of walk forward to try and, you know, get to the coordinates. They do get attacked a bit. Good little fight sequences. You know, again, Tony Daniel kills it on the art. He's always good, but he excels at action. You know, a great sequence of like all these creepy beasties kind of coming at them out of the grass, them shooting at them. One of them gets like the gunshot like takes it in half. It just looks fantastic. But they finally get there. They reach the guy who they're here to see, Tiberius. And he says, "You're safe now." And he takes them inside. And the big cliffhanger is, you know, she goes, "Oh, you know, I saw something that I didn't believe, something I hadn't seen in 13 years. I saw sunshine." And it is, you know, the final panel is just this flower in sunlight. And it's, you know, this book has done a big enough deal, you know, done enough to build up why this is such a big deal, to have sunlight, like genuine sunlight, seemingly. The whole time it's been disbelief. Oh, there's not really sunlight there. It's something or other. But she was going to take the job anyway, and desperation of hope to cure her brother. But there actually seems to be something here. I'm really intrigued to see what goes wrong, because this is only issue 4, so something has to go wrong. But no, really exciting stuff. Really, really tightly paced issue again. It kind of really neatly works through its sections. There's not a lot of back and forth. It is opening, flashback, first town, truck, ending. So it progresses really linearly, which Snyder comics don't always do. But Daniel's killing on the art. It looks great. Characters are, you know, a lot of fun banter back and forth between them. Yeah, it's like a 8.5.
Okay, there you go. Which will take me on to the Patreon book I'm doing this week, which is the Joker issue 4. This is last month's issue. Like I said earlier, though, soon to be caught up. But we left last time with the villains. Oh, I mean, obviously Joker's a villain too, but you know, the Bane squad, or at least Lady Bane, and these troops coming through the jungle, coming to the forest to get to Joker and Gordon, who are reluctantly going to have to work together. Well, Joker's up for it, but Gordon's obviously reluctant. And we also have eventually the two people from the Texas family, from the Texas Chainsaw style family, drive a bus straight into the house. And all this is going on. And a lot of this, you know, Gordon has a moment when all the fighting starts kicking off where he could just kill the Joker. Like, he's got him in his sights, he's got his gun in his hand, but he knows it's not him. He knows that, you know, he keeps justifying things. He justifies like everything he's ever done. He always in his back of his head saying that, you know, I'm doing the right thing for this reason and that. It brings up his marriage. He says he's a pretty shitty husband because he kind of kept saying, well, I'm letting this suffer because I'm doing the right thing out there. I can make a difference. I'm trying to build a better world and so on and so on. But he knows it's not him to kill, because he even says it. You know, if I with all these guns going off, with all these people shooting, all these villains that are all fighting in front of him, like, no one would ever know it was him. Barbara would never know it was him that actually hit the shot that killed him. But he still can't do it. So yes. soldier grabs Gordon, but he dives out the way because this is when the bus comes in with the two villains from the Texas Chainsaw family style. And they come in, but Joker's got some fancy joke gas all set up that he sets off, which also affects Gordon and leads to Gordon going, passed out and stuff. So he's actually now held captive by Joker. We do cut to the clock tower though, where Babs has got Steph doing research, but they've not really found a whole lot. They're following Cressida. She's basically been hiding at a hotel. She's been using the swimming pool. She's been getting a massage. Cass is following her still. And ultimately, it doesn't amount to much. And basically, Oracle concludes that she probably knows someone's watching her. She's assuming she's being watched, and she's doing everything she can to not actually give anything away. Obviously, the last issue ended with her being basically cozying up to the Court of Owls and like reinstating her family's name into the Court of Owls. I don't know if you were here for when I talked about the last issue, but that was
I don't think I was, and I'll be honest, I don't think I'm all here right now.
That's fair. That's really fair. The cliffhanger of this scene though is when Steph leaves to go to bed, a Talon appears behind Babs. So that's a bit of a cliffhanger there. Fun sequence. Obviously with the art here not being amazing all the time, but I do want to point out there's a couple of nice shots in here of this stuff in the clock tower. That's all right. But Gordon wakes up. He's tied to a chair, as is the guy from the Texas Chainsaw family, and Joker's slashing at him, ripping cords off of him, all sorts of things, and he's basically saying to Gordon that I'm going to mess you up like more than I did back in that amusement park. He references Killing Joke, and talks about how basically he wants to hire him now that he's doing PI work. He wants to hire him to find out who did the A-Day attack. And Gordon's like, it was you. He's like, nah. When have I ever done that and just let everyone die quietly? No. That's not me. Someone did this to attract all this attention, to put me in the crosshairs. I had plans. I had post-Joker War plans that I had going. I was setting things up, and it all got interrupted because of some dickwad doing this A-Day bollocks. And framing me for it. So yeah, that's kind of where we're going with this. Gordon asks why I won't kill him. Why don't they just kill me? And Joker's like, no, this is because this is worse. This is me breaking you just like Batman. The idea that Gordon in some ways is kind of into that territory that Batman is, where Joker enjoys messing with him just too much. And Lady Bane actually comes out in once Joker leaves, Lady Bane comes out and breaks Gordon free, and basically, it's kind of like it helps him. Says you're Gordon from Gotham City. You might as well go home while you still can, kind of thing. And that's the end of the chapter. But she walks off, so it's kind of like there might be like an uneasy alliance that kind of forms with that character. This is probably the least interesting main story of the issues so far. Not because there's anything really wrong with it, but just because it didn't have quite the same hook that the other issues have had, with the reveal of Gordon knowing that he knows who Babs is, or the Court of Owls tie last issue, or there wasn't some big shocking kind of tidbit in this one to kind of really give it that extra spark. But it continued everything that's been going on story-wise. The storyline's still solid. I'm digging again, having the Batgirls and Babs kind of be this supporting cast in here, and having the subplot is really kind of given a nice break from what's going on in the main story. And Gordon's inner monologue and inner struggle of what to do with Joker is obviously the fascinating anchor of the whole thing. So good stuff. Main story, I'll probably give it just a 7 in this case. Actually 6.5 because the art's the art. But then the backup, Punchline got shanked by Orca seemingly at the end of the last backup story. Harper was caught in a trap and she's attempted to be burned alive in this basement storage area of Snyder College. Yeah. Snyder's a bit too recent for this, I think, to be honest. I think you have to have someone who's not been around a while.
That's fair.
Bit more tenure. Harper's able to break free of her chair, though, and grab her grapple gun and get out of dodge. Not much to say there. Some of the art's kind of pretty, though, for flying out. Nice color work. It's got a kind of scratchy style, but it's like a lot of these books do. I say that's a lot, but you've got all the oranges and all the flames. But when she gets out, notably the background has got a sort of sheen of blue. And you got the green grass, so it goes to these colder colors. So there's a lot of contrast with the previous scene. Back at the prison, though, basically it turns out that Arca is kind of double crossing the Queen of the Royal Flush Gang here, and hits her, and basically says, like you basically are, by getting me to try and kill another prisoner or beat up another prisoner, you're effectively extending my sentence because I'm now causing more trouble. And says, no, you're sacrificing your freedom for your own stupid gain. I'm not on your side. And yeah, so, and then the two goons that she has as well also turn on her and pull out some blades because they're in the hospital room in the prison. And because Arca says, I'm not going to kill anyone. I'm not going to kill anymore to settle a grudge, because Arca's kind of turned over a new leaf to a point. But the other two say, we don't have any problem with murder. And they go towards her with a scalpel and like a bone saw. And the last panel is just Punchline smirking as blood splashes onto her face. Pretty dark. Honestly, I think the backup's fine. I'm enjoying having more Harper and Punchline because they're interesting characters. I think the problem with it is that because it's so short, this was like 8 pages or whatever this week, or this issue, is that, Harper's story in this was basically she's tied to a chair, there's fire around her, she's able to struggle free and fire a grapple gun and get out of a window, and that's it. Like, that's all she had story-wise this in this chapter. And as a backup, there's only so many pages to play with, but it does kind of make it hard to really feel there's much progression versus like a regular comic book or a regular full-size story. So I think that's hindering it a little bit. I think some backups are doing a better job of feeling like they're using their story and telling enough of a story in that time. This kind of felt like, this might have been better as like, bundling them together into full-sized issues and either having a mini or having it pop up as an Urban Legends story in there perhaps instead. I don't know. But it's still, I'm still going to keep reading the backup because it's perfectly readable and art tends to be quite nice and I enjoy the characters it's dealing with. But I would say, like, because of this limitation of how much time it has and how many pages it has each chapter, it kind of it's peaking at at a 7 at best. And here I'd probably say it's more of a 6. Not because I think it's bad, but just because it needs to be more going on, chapter to chapter, I'd say. But perfectly fine. So that's Joker issue 4, which will finally take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and top 5 books. You can go and collapse after this, Connor. You're almost done. What is your panel / moment of the week?
I have to be honest, slim pickings. Nothing really stood out for me. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of books I liked, but there's no panel or moment that really stood out to me as I was reading them. Usually I have an idea, but I literally just had to go and look through, skim through all the books really quickly because I had no clue. I'm just going to go with Alan Scott going, Kick-Ass, and Obsidian being like, damn right.
I can see that one. There's a few that I could maybe pick. But I think I'll just go with a fairly easy choice and just go with that last page of Rorschach and just kind of the realization that there's more going on and he's got another motive for this conversation. It's just a really nice, good selling bit of storytelling that pays off like so many details that were sprinkled in the issue. So, I'll go with that. All right. Cover of the week. I guess I'll jump in first for this one. I'll shout out the variant, the Behermo variant for Detective is obviously
Mm-hmm.
quite nice. I'll also say the main action cover is solid Bogdanovich stuff. I have to go though with the main Rorschach cover, which is the kid and Myerson Rorschach looking at each other, but the negative space of their faces and like the top of their shirts kind of make the guy who died. They make the
Yeah, and you got the fingerprint going
yeah
around that as well. It's a
yeah.
nice cover.
It's a really nice cover. I mean, the variant's really solid, but the variant's just it's just an image of Rorschach. It's pretty much straightforward
Yeah.
stuff. But I'll go with the main Rorschach cover. What you got?
Yeah, I think for me, there are 4 potential covers. You've mentioned a couple of them: the Behemoth Tech, the main Rorschach one. I think the Rorschach variant as well, just because I'm a sucker for Jenny Prison's, art. I do think the Wonder Woman variant, which is a Becky Cloonan piece, I think is quite nice as well.
Mm-hmm.
I might actually go with that. I think it's a bit different. Got a nice vibe to it.
Cool. All right. Best art of the week then.
I feel like it probably has to be Detective.
Well, for you, I read Rorschach, so.
Well, oh, yeah. No,
So
I completely understand that.
So yeah,
But,
I'm going with Rorschach. Fornes for Rorschach, but no, Detective is really good art though. I really like Bogdanovich's art in that.
again, it's another week where there's a lot of like perfectly good art. Like action's good. I think the art in the Detective is perfectly good. Urban Legends mostly good, but inconsistent across all the stories.
Mm-hmm.
Infinite Frontier, yeah, again, like individually all good, but inconsistent. Wonder Woman's just fine. Tech's the only one that really stands out, but it's not on the same level as some other weeks. So I will say when when I'm picking best art, it wouldn't compete in like last week probably.
All right, top 5, go.
Oh god, what is it? First is probably Action Comics annual. That's that one's safe. After that, Detective. Then, oh god, Infinite Frontier. No, yeah, we'll go Infinite Frontier. We'll go Urban Legends, and we'll go Wonder Woman. I think.
Okay, I have Rorschach at number 1. Number 2, I'll do Action Comics annual. Number 3, I'll go Detective Comics. Number 4, Infinite Frontier, and then number 5, I will. Yeah, I think I'll throw in the Flash annual at number 5. Thank you, retcons. Thank you.
I got a lot of books hovering around the 7, which is by no means a bad week because 7s are pretty good.
Solid. Yeah, 7's
But
good.
there's not a lot of standouts for me this week. And I think last week I only had like 4 books, but they were all like 8.5s and 9s. So it felt like a better week overall. But I mean, definitely not a bad week here.
Yeah, well, in that case, I will tell everyone what's coming next week. The Flash 772, which, spreading them out.
Yeah.
But yeah, Flash 772, Nightwing 82, Justice League 65, Catwoman 33, Legends of the Dark Knight issue 3, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow issue 2, Superman and the Authority issue 1, Superman Red and Blue issue 5, Blue and Gold issue 1. Oh, gee. Well, Matt's glad he's here for that one next week at least. Shazam issue 1 is out, but that's mostly a tie-in to the Teen Titans Academy stuff, just if you're considering it. And then Truth and Justice issue 6 round it out. So it's definitely a little bit softer than this week, numbers wise, which is nice. But super excited for Nightwing, Catwoman, and yeah, Supergirl, I'd say. So.
I'm very excited for Blue and Gold and also intrigued by Superman and the Authority because even if I have no care whatsoever about the Authority, I'm intrigued by Morrison and Gannon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there you go. That is what's coming next week. So I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Sharp, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. They are our producers at the $20 or more tier, but you can of course support us for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. $5 tier gets you early access to the show by a day. So we're going to have a look at that. You get it on Saturday whenever it's ready. It varies time-wise depending on how long the show runs and how long...
It'll be a bit later this
takes the
week than usual.
process.
Oh, no, it won't because we're doing a day early.
Yeah, it's Friday. It'll probably be fine tomorrow because we're recording early. But
yeah.
Usually if we record on Saturday, which is the normal day, yes, it varies in time.
If it had been this length on a Saturday, you would be getting it late.
Yes, it would be very late. But yeah, go check out that. You can of course support us for completely free by hitting the like button, subscribe, comment on YouTube. All those things do help a lot, as does for the audio version. Rating is on iTunes 5 stars, a review, all those things help. Get us and on the Twitters at DC Comics Podcast. You can share us out on there or wherever you want, social media wise. All those things do help a lot. It's always very heartwarming when I see people asking for podcast recommendations for comic books, and I'll see our show recommended. It's always nice. Sometimes, it'll be. It's obvious we're going to see it 'cause it's on Twitter and we're tagged, but sometimes I'll just see it on like Reddit, and no one even knows that we're going to see that. So it's always sweet to see. So yeah, help us out in any way you can if you enjoy the show. Every and all ways are appreciated. That is pretty much the episode, though. It's been a meaty one, episode 262. So we'll see you again next time. Matt will be back. Connor may or may not be here, depending on...
I don't know yet because my work decided they don't understand whether or not I could go back to work or not.
Yes.
As of yesterday, they didn't know. So I have no shifts yet.
Yes. So depending on whether he's free when we're recording next week, or maybe here. But Matt is definitely going to be back next week. So look forward to that. But otherwise, that is pretty much us. So I usually throw in something witty or something at the end, but I am so hungry at this point. It's been such a long episode that I'm just going to say thank you. It's been a pleasure. Keep reading DC Comics. And remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.